There's a desk. On that desk is a sign-in sheet. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign in. City Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Yes, Councilperson Morrissey. Here. Palladino. Here. Pratt. Here. Sharp. Here. Soha. Stuchel. Veer. Here. Morrissey. Wolfram. Here. And Mayor Stockford.
Here.
We have 8 present.
Thank you, Katie. I did receive correspondence from Councilman Stuchel, and he will not be joining us tonight. We'll move into approval of agenda. City Manager, any members of council have any changes to make to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Veer to approve the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll move on to public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. Remember, if you're going to speak during this particular public comment period, make sure it has a direct tie to something present on the agenda. I would also like to mention a couple things. I've got this handy dandy timer right here. It's set for 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, whether you're done with your comment or not, we will ask you to sit down. That's not out of rudeness or meanness or not wanting to hear your point. We just have to keep some sort of decorum in here. The other thing I would mention is if you're here to speak on the resolution to adopt brownfield plan for 300 Hidden Meadows Drive, we are going to have a public hearing on that, which means there will be a particular public comment section for that, which will give you the opportunity to speak with council members and possibly ask questions to the developer. So I would suggest saving your public comment for that time if that's what you're here to speak on. The podium's now open.
I want to speak on the last meeting. That would be the minutes of the meeting. One thing I want to talk about is the Ms. Pratt didn't speak at all during the discussions, a lot of discussions that was going on, which I think she sits there and listens a lot, puts the information together, and then she votes the way she feels that her constituents would want. She does not vote in support of her spouse that may work someplace or anything like that. She votes for her constituents. I thought it was very rude when someone said, basically looked right at her and said, she hadn't spoken. And I thought that was very rude for someone to say. Basically, I felt it kind of chastised her for not speaking, just listening to what everybody else said. The other thing I didn't think was a very good comment was the one about I kind of look at this as like a closet drinker maybe, that you say some of this should have been discussed behind closed doors with a glass of bourbon and a cigar. That's not what the people of the public want to hear you talk about. It's that's the way you think things should be discussed in the city. They think it should all be open, and I just thought that was a very rude comment. I don't know if the person realized what they were saying or not, but it fit their character, let me put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any more public comment regarding agenda items only? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on in the packet to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city and BPU claims of October 3rd, payroll of October 10th and the 24th, city council minutes of October 21st, finance minutes of October 21st, public services minutes of October 15th, EDC minutes of October 15th, border review minutes of October 15th, traffic control order for Veterans Day ceremony, then there's the Veterans Day ceremony use agreement, and then there's another traffic control order for the holiday steam-powered passenger train. It's very exciting. Any discussion on any of the items in the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. You might be in the wrong agenda, Councilman Wolfram. We are on the agenda for November 4th, 2024. That's probably the last agenda. I do it all the time.
You have some money, Professor? So moved.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Soha to approve the consent. Oh, was it Cindy? I'm sorry. Okay. Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt to approve the consent agenda. May I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Palladino?
Yes.
Pratt? Yes. Sharp?
Yes.
Soha?
Yes.
Veer?
Yes.
Wolfram?
Yes.
Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey?
Yes.
8-0, it's approved.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, we'll move into communications petitions. The only item on there is Hillsdale County Commissioner update from Commissioner Ingalls, and I have it on good authority. Commissioner Ingalls is not in the state of Michigan, so. Okay, so we've got no communications petitions. We'll move into introduction and adoption of ordinances public hearing. This is for the resolution to adopt brownfield plan for 300 Hidden Meadows Drive. Let me get caught up in my packet to it. But as far as I know, we've got some gentlemen from Edwin Homes with us, so perhaps you gentlemen would like to take the podium first, or Sam, you wanna?
No, I'm just getting the screen set up for them here.
Okay.
Presentation.
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Brian Farkas. I am the Director of Workforce Housing for Allen Edwin Homes. I'm going to do a brief presentation and then we can open up to some questions. So first, I think we're all familiar with the site we're looking at doing the additional development on. But I think it's worthwhile to go through some history of the site and how we got to where we are today. So development started in 1999 and carried on until about 2006 when it stalled for probably a variety of economic reasons. I believe the EDC listed it for sale with several different real estate agents from that time. In 2023, March, spring of that year, we signed a purchase agreement both for the back portion of the property that we're here talking about today and the front portion of the property that we built 6 duplex units on, all of which are rented but for one, and that's just finishing up right now. Our company's very happy with the performance of those workforce housing units up front. We had a groundbreaking, I think a few of you were there, beautiful April morning, and then that was in April, and then the first tenants moved in October. We're a large company, we build about 800 homes a year. We've got a very tight scheduling, construction process, so I think that turnaround time is something we like to talk about. And so we believe this proposal for the back portion of it, the 61 additional units, closely aligns with the city's master plan. And so here's our vision for the site. We've got 61 single-family homes developed in 2 phases and a subdivision of the land allowing for individual ownership of each lot. And it's fully engineered in compliance with local requirements. I believe the city of Hillsdale requires a 25-year flood requirement. We engineered it to a 100-year flood requirement. The water is detained on site. As you can see, we've got 2 basins, one for phase 1 and one for phase 2. A little bit about the way we build homes. So we've been in business about 30 years. We're a Portage-based company. We use name brand partners in all of our homes, Carrier, Sherwin-Williams Paint, GE Appliances, things like that. We build, as I said, about 800 homes a year, and we've gotten pretty good at it to the point where, if you guys were there at the open house for the duplexes, I think someone mentioned the fan in the bathroom doesn't seem to be going off. Our homes are so airtight. By code, we have to have a fan running to force air in and out of the house. So they're very highly efficient homes. The graph right here just shows the energy efficiency of our homes. An existing home is the lower arrow there. That's about a 130 HERS score. With a HERS score, the lower you go, the better off the rating is. Think of it as a MPG for a car. And then new homes come in, the average new home comes in at about 100. We are at 60, so we're quite proud of our energy efficiency. And this is exactly what we intend to build here. This is our Integrity Series. These are 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes. I think they're stunning. I've been in some of the developments where we've rolled these out, and they're quite beautiful. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the deal, I want to talk briefly about why Hillsdale and why is Alan Edwin interested in Hillsdale. About 2.5 years ago, when I was talking to the leadership group of our company, I had dinner with the owner and another vice president, and we were going through the kind of model of how they build homes and the business model and how they do it, and the movie Moneyball came up. And if a company can have a favorite movie, Moneyball is our favorite movie. We love looking at metrics, we love looking at data, we love building proprietary systems to show us where our competitors aren't seeing opportunities. And so what I did here and what I'll show you is our internal data. So we break the states that we operate in, and right now we're primarily in Michigan, but we've got work in northern Indiana and Ohio. We break things down into school districts, and we look at what homes are for sale by school district. What are they selling for? What's the year built? What's the square footage? Everything like that leads into how we build and sell about 800 homes a year. So what you'll see here, I know it's really small, but you see price bands along the bottom. I'll point out, it starts out at about 100 to 120 a year and goes up by about $20,000 increments, all the way up to 520 to 540 at the end. The blue bar represents what's sold in the last 12 months, and the gray bar is what's currently active. The reason I bring this up is to show you, we're looking at making north of a $15 million investment of our own capital at our own risk. We're not doing this blindly. So here's the price band we believe we'll play in the Three Meadows North target price band, 280 to 360. Excuse me real quick. Fighting the last rounds of a cold here. So to summarize that data from the previous slide, we saw 26 homes sell in that price band in the last 12 months. 12 homes sold in the last 3 months, and there's 9 active listings. So from a capitalist point of view, the 9 selling, that's our competition. What are we dealing with here? We have about 3.8 months of supply, so that's considered a seller's market. We like those markets. You're going to see homes appreciating by single digits. The average square foot's about 2,300, right where we're going to be building. And the average home built was in 1939. So we're looking at some very, very old housing stock. I gotta tell you, we build across the state. This is exactly the kind of market we thrive in. And here's our locations of where we build across the state. And these are municipalities in Michigan where we've built over 50 homes. There's a running total at the bottom. And so to summarize it, we're projecting about a 10 home a year pace in terms of build out. That's what makes our pro forma work. There'll be 61 new single family homes. We're going to reserve 13 of those for workforce housing, and I'll get to that in a second. But we're going to basically keep rent below the market rate for the workforce housing segment, 80 to 120% of the area median income, and I'll show you the real numbers in the next slide. Now the remaining homes will be offered for sale. So to be very clear, the developer here is asking for no upfront money from the city. There's going to be no checks written from the city of Hillsdale to Alan Edwin Homes. We are solely asking for the taxes that we generate get funded back to us to a certain amount for certain purposes. Again, we own 100% of the risk. We're going to be putting in the site infrastructure work first. That's about $1.8 million. And then the new home construction on top of that is going to be over 16 million. The reimbursement period is 20 years, and it only works, we only get paid back if we're successful. Excuse me, I'm really glad I brought the water. So the $7 million we're targeting to get back, and Joe here, my colleague, can walk through the reasons and where each dollar goes. If we're successful and if we do things right, we're getting about $350,000 back a year from tax revenue that is not currently being generated. And so to make this work, this site that's been started in 1999, there's 4 programs that are working here. So Alan Edwin Homes, obviously, and then Copper Bay Rental is our wholly owned subsidiary that handles all of our rental housing. We've got about 400 rental homes in our fleet right now. And so we're having the for sale owner occupied through Allen Edmonds. That's one kind of leg of the stool. We have the for lease component for Copper Bay, market rate. And we've got the market rate, or the workforce housing through Copper Bay. The new law at the bottom there, the tax increment financing, is a new law. It's about 15 months old. And that is kind of allowing us to pull all this together. Some quotes from our Copper Bay tenants. And then I want to walk through this closely because I want to be very, very clear here. As I say, I want to be clear. I'm hoping you can understand my voice. But I want to be very clear. The bottom rectangle right there on the screen. So first of all, on the bottom, you've got elapsed time. And then you've got property values on the vertical axis on the left. So if you think about this, whatever the parcel is paying in property taxes today, and whatever the city is receiving from this, will continue to receive it. What we're asking for is the green box. So the money we put in is going to drive up the property values. That's going to lead to increased tax revenue. That's what we capture to pay ourselves back. Once we're paid back, the city now has 61 new homes that are going to hit the tax rolls all at once we're paid back, and that's the blue box to the far right. It's very clear that I'm not sure what's being said in the community, but at no point is the city of Hillsdale going to write a check to Allen Edmonds Homes. There's going to be no impact on that. Now, the workforce housing sector. So the portion of this development that's going to be for workforce housing, we're going to have people qualified for the income levels. So the top group is how big a family is how much they can make. So for a family of 5, they have to make below $103,000 a year. And then below that is the rental limits, and that covers the maximum rent we can charge. I currently believe the pro forma is built out. We're going to be in the 80% 4 bedrooms, so we're going to be limiting our rent to about $1,800 a month for a 4 bedroom. And so that's our vision for this site. We've got affordability, market rate, and ownership for lease. One last thing I do want to touch upon. I've heard people talk about the data in Hillsdale on what people make and the median income. So here's a slide from the U.S. Census Bureau. And the median income per household is $59,000. If you go to families, it jumps to $71,000. If you go to married, over $80,000. We're also looking at the people making over $100,000. We've got 15% over $100,000, 5% over $150,000. We think this is a very healthy market. I think it's the exact market we do really well. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions or a public comment. Thank you.
Council, any questions?
I have a question. We have a tax increment financing authority that covers the city itself, and is this a separate tax increment financing area?
I'm going to take this one. Hi, Joe Augustinelli. I'm with Michigan Growth Advisors. We're the economic development incentive consultants on the project that have been helping Allen Edwin with this project and others around the state. So, good question. We're utilizing the Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act. So the tax increment financing authority is the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board, which would be different than a TIFA board that you may have in other parts of the city. There's 7 enabling statutes in Michigan that allow for tax increment financing, and this is utilizing the Public Act 381 Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act.
So the tax increment financing is coming through the Brownfield Redevelopment Act rather than
Correct.
the TIFA Act.
Correct. Yes. It's new legislation. He said it was only 15 months old from the state of Michigan.
Yeah, if it's helpful, I can give you a little bit of background. So the Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act, your probably first question is, wait a second, this isn't a contaminated site. Why are we talking about the Brownfield program? So the legislature amended Act 381 last summer, summer of 2023. Prior to the change in the law, you could only use the Brownfield program for contaminated, blighted, and functionally obsolete and historic properties. They added a new qualifying trigger last summer of housing property. Essentially, my watch is talking to me. They added housing property as a new category of eligible activities under the Brownfield program. Essentially saying we have this severe housing shortage statewide. We need a financing tool that can allow communities to inject incentive to allow development to move forward, and said anything with a housing unit on it is eligible property under the Brownfield program now.
And when did you say that was amended?
July of 2023.
July of 2023.
Yes.
So, over
Maybe
a little over a
16
year.
months. I didn't do the math very
right.
well. Yeah, year in last summer.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, we will open up the podium for public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to 1 to the podium. Remember, we are speaking specifically on a brownfield plan for the city of Hillsdale pursuant to and in accordance with the provisions of Act 381 of the Public Acts of the State of Michigan of 1996 as amended. And this is regarding the Three Meadows property. And if you're a member of the public and you have any questions, I'm sure that we can hopefully get those answered by the developers while they're here. So this is your opportunity. The podium's now open.
I'll start it off. My name is John Condon. I'm a 58-year resident of Hillsdale City area, the city and the area. Moved here when I was 9 years old. I've owned 3 houses in the city of Hillsdale. I currently own 2 properties in the industrial park. Bought and sold another property inside the industrial park. I joined the EDP group back in 2013, which is the Economic Development Partnership for the county of Hillsdale, Hillsdale County. I was a real novice in economic development, but I figured, hey, it's going to be easy. Just get some jobs and we'll grow the community or grow the county. Boy, was I naive. There's a lot involved in economic development. 2017, I joined the Economic Development Corporation for the city of Hillsdale. A similar group, but a smaller area. I've also joined the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. I'm the current chairman of both of those committees, or both of those corporations. When I started in the group in 2017, a study was done. It was called the Rising Tide Study. And it outlined a lot of positives and negatives of the city area. And this word kept coming up in this study. The word housing kept coming up. We lack housing. There's a lot of positives in the community, but one of the things as far back as 2017 was how do we create more housing? Well, we had the Three Meadows development area. We had that north area. Originally it was designed to have 3 different phases in there. We did not have any infrastructure. The biggest roadblock in developing Three Meadows was there's no roads back there. So we talked about, maybe we could go to the city council and borrow a couple $1 million and build some roads for some vacant lots. And we kind of wrote that off as a good idea. So we kind of were in discussions. We decided that we're going to have to wait for a good developer to come in here and decide to build. One thing about economic growth is getting investment in the city. We've gotten the college is a lot of investment, the hospital's a lot of investment, Myers and Aldi's is a big investment. I just spent $4 million in the city's industrial park, my investment. Now, Alan Edwards wants to invest in the city of Hillsdale, and that creates economic growth. One more comment. And the board in the Brownfield redevelopment meeting on October 15th, we discussed the Act 381 work plan. And a motion was made to recommend to the council to approve it. That motion was passed, that we would recommend that the council approve that Act 381 work plan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any more public comment?
My name's John Mock and I live on 11 Windswept, and this project will be extended right past. I'm on a dead-end street right now, but this project will be extending Windswept. And I'm not against the development, but I want it to be done fairly. And I don't think that 60 families should be coming down past my street at 8 o'clock in the morning. I think we should have more exits from this, and I want to make sure that that happens. And also, I would like to ask if I can buy the lot next to me as a buffer between this project and my house. And that's all it is.
Okay, thank you, John. Is the lot next to you for sale?
Well, yeah, I could have bought it. I mean, I didn't know this project was going in. I bought it in 2015, and I was never told that this project was on its way since '99. I mean, I think I should have been told that.
Okay.
I wouldn't have bought that lot.
Well, sure. This project hasn't been underway since '99, though. This is all new. They were just saying this. They're doing this development off of legislation that's only 15 months old as it is. So,
But I just would make sure it's not a problem.
of course. Any more public comment? Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to address the critical need for workforce housing options in the city of Hillsdale. As the economic developer for Hillsdale County, my job entails business attraction, primarily industrial business, and the retention of our existing businesses. Typically, industrial jobs are jobs that pay well, create trickle-down income into our smaller businesses. In the last 18 months, we have had 4 industrial attraction projects choose Hillsdale County as their location over other communities. That's a tremendous amount of investment in Hillsdale County. However, the lack of workforce housing options has been an ongoing issue to also attract the employee base that's tied to all of this investment. And due to the lack of available housing options, most employees are choosing to commute to the community instead of living here. That means they buy groceries, they go out to eat, they go out to entertainment venues, they pay taxes, they do volunteer work, and their children go to schools in other communities, not Hillsdale. And these are communities where housing costs are either parallel or higher than Hillsdale County. So it isn't they don't want to live in Hillsdale County, they can't live in Hillsdale County because they don't have the options they need to buy housing. When I make retention calls to the existing businesses, time and again, the issue is that they are having trouble attracting professionals to fill their jobs that have required the higher talent. Mechanical, industrial, electrical, quality engineers, nurses, doctors. It's really hard to attract those folks to the community. We're competing in Hillsdale not only for the business investment, but also for the people. The EDP spends a significant amount of time and money to attract people in site selection magazine ads. We're spending $10,000, a full-page ad for Hillsdale County to attract people for the quality of life, another full page to attract people to Hillsdale County for our industrial ability that we have here. We have great power in Hillsdale County and different things that our industries need. The site selection magazine is going to go out to over 41,000 individuals. It's not a newsstand. In the contiguous United States, Alaska, Hawaii, Asia, Canada, and Europe. I'm trying to reach out. It's killing me that I can't house people when we have people who want to come and invest in our community. This conversation about Three Meadows, I was on the EDC board years back, and now that we actually have a project, I would really like to implore council to consider the many reasons that makes really good sense to have the workforce housing options in our community. Our future growth in this county depends on having the housing to attract business and the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Timothy Green. I live in Ward 3. I attend. Do you need help?
Sorry, Tim.
Do you need help with it?
Proceed.
I attended the EDC board meeting where they recommended that this be recommended to council. To me, sitting in the meeting, it didn't really seem like it didn't seem like most members of the EDC wanted to hear arguments about this. Everybody who spoke, except for the developers, and I think everybody but the developers who spoke at the EDC meeting were against the project. And even though that was the case, there wasn't much discussion by the EDC members about this. I want you guys to put more thought into the decision than they did the recommendation. Sue, the last lady who came up, spoke about a workforce housing crisis in the state of Michigan, especially in the city of Hillsdale. And this development is going in, or this subsidy is being asked to be given to Alan Edwin because of that workforce housing crisis. I contest that this exists in Hillsdale. It's being asserted, but I don't really see the evidence for it. There are multiple unsold homes in Hillsdale. If you look at Zillow, you can see them, that they've been on the market for a long time, especially the higher income homes in Hillsdale. Especially the upper income homes. I think multiple comments have been made to you guys via email about some of the other projects that the council has approved where multiple homes sit unfilled. I think this is unfounded, but I think that some of the homes that have already been built by Alan Edwin in that area of Three Meadows are not sold, or there's nobody living in them already. And on top of that, these homes are being built at $250,000 or $280,000 to $350,000 each. I understand that 13 of them are going to be rented under market rates, which is another discussion, but the median income of Hillsdale is $50,000. Only the top 10% of residents of Hillsdale or people coming to Hillsdale are going to be able to afford a home that at the minimum is $280,000. If we want workforce housing, we should build workforce housing. I know that some of the EDC plots have been sold to individuals. I'm maybe just throwing it out there, maybe that's a better idea to continue in that path. I think building multiple very expensive homes that are all the same is not very beautiful for Hillsdale and won't solve the workforce housing crisis that everybody says is going on. So even if it is existing, this is not the way that we should solve the issue. So I encourage council to ignore those claims and find a better way to create housing for Hillsdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Any more public comment?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeremiah Regan. I live in Ward 3. We're hearing two separate and complementary arguments, supposedly complementary. First, that there is massive demand for these homes, and second, that the demand is not enough that they can be done without taxpayer subsidy. We're hearing about the need for workforce housing. I don't know any workforce people. I know citizens, I know human beings, and I'm concerned about justice. If a regular citizen attempted to build a home in order to sell it, he would not receive a tax exemption of 25 years or a tax reduction of 25 years from the city. He would not get security on his investment. Anyone who wishes to invest is taking on a risk. They take on that risk because they believe they will profit from it. If there is sufficient demand for these homes, they should not require a tax reduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
most important thing I think is they gotta have a way to get there for emergency services, which they don't have. You gotta go like 5 miles out of your way to get out there. So, and to go along with what the gentleman said, if there's demands for hotel rooms, then why do we need to give the college no taxes on their property? I mean, if the demand's there, why do we need to do it? It doesn't make sense. I guess it's a two-sided street.
Thank you, Jack.
My name's Sam Waldvogel. I live here in Hillsdale. I work here in Hillsdale. I've been a member of Hillsdale essentially my whole life. I work in town as a financial advisor and own a home here on South Manning Street with my wife, who's a veterinarian. I'm involved in the Rotary Club, the hospice, and I'm a member of the Hillsdale Economic Development Corporation. Deeply committed to this community and want to see it prosper and grow, and want to voice my support for this project at Three Meadows. I believe that Hillsdale is desperately in need of housing, and ultimately, because we're really not unique, the reality is that there is a nationwide housing shortage. Part of the reason why we're seeing the highest interest rates we've seen since 2008, and there's still pretty massive demand for housing. And want to bring attention to some data from Michigan Growth Advisors that only 2% of the housing units here in Hillsdale have been built after 2010, and approximately 58% of our housing units were built prior to 1970. In 2022, our vacancy rate was only 0.9%, which was a 43.8% drop over the preceding 5 years. So the reality is that our community just does not have enough homes. We have low vacancy rates, and the homes we do have are aging and require additional maintenance. I can attest to that myself. My home was built in 1888, and it has been a working project to say the least. And while I don't mind it, I don't have kids yet, I've got the time and the energy to do it. The reality is people looking to move to this community don't want to buy a fixer-upper. They want to have a nice new home to work in, to raise their family in, a nice neighborhood to raise their kids in. And we don't have a neighborhood like this with these new homes that ultimately they're not going to be just carbon copies of each other. It's going to be a beautiful neighborhood that ideally is going to help expand upon the homes that are already out there. Certainly there's need for lots of housing in the community of all different price ranges, but I do think we need to be mindful of the houses that are currently out there at the Three Meadows and try to maintain the certain standard that has already been created out there. Additionally, I think at the end of the day, we aren't making any tax revenue off that land right now anyway, and so I think if we're going to bring in a developer that's willing to invest the money to build all that infrastructure in there and take on that risk, then let's cut them a slack for a little while, and at the end of the day, Hillsdale's eventually going to get that tax revenue, but I think ultimately then we're going to build houses that are going to attract people here. We constantly have people looking to come in and work at the college and at the hospital. There's constantly demand for jobs at those different employers, but one of the biggest complaints is that there just aren't houses, nice new houses for those people to move into. So I think there absolutely is a need for this in the community, and I voice my support for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Any more public comment?
Hi, Council. Dominic Sansone. I'd like to encourage you to vote against this resolution. I think that the question again comes down to the median income of this town being about $50,000, and us looking to put in homes that are worth $280,000 to $360,000. Again, I don't know where all these people are with families, as a man with a family, who have this $83,000 median income. I certainly don't. Again, I don't know anybody who does. And I think that there are certainly homes in town, yes, perhaps that need some work, but when you put that work in, you're not only raising the value of that property, but the value of the properties around you as well. This town can be revitalized, it can be beautified, it can be improved upon when people invest money in the town. I don't think you need to go and build another 61 houses by a development that makes over 800 houses a year. I'm sure it will be a nice community, but there are nice communities in this town, and I think that we can improve upon them without bringing someone in, subsidizing them, and having them, rather not subsidizing them, but not having them pay tax money for the foreseeable future, however long, while there are homes that are in this town that can be bought, that can be made better, and that can make this entire town better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any more public comment?
Hi, Matt Nisman from Ward 3. Start with two questions. First, I think I heard the answer to this, but it wasn't clear. I want to know the purchase price for this land and see if that's just being given or what the amount is. And I also wonder what the fire department thinks about adding 60 homes on the other side of a bridge they can't drive under and having to drive around. I looked it up on Google and it was about a 12-minute drive, which seems like a long time to have to get to a fire if that was to happen. I'm also very concerned about, two or three meetings ago, we were told that the city's roads are in terrible shape, and that we have to charge. Therefore, we have to charge people $5,000 to fix their roads. But right now, we want to add more roads. I know those roads will be paid for up front. We want to add more residents without the city collecting tax revenue for those residents. Dial Ride is right at $100,000 loss. We pay for Parks and Rec, Police and Fire, and my understanding is the corporation will collect the tax money, and the city won't get that for 25 years. If we were concerned about workforce housing, true workforce housing these days, which is smaller homes, maybe before 3 months ago we would have reduced the minimum housing size to make homes in Hillsdale affordable. We did that 3 months ago. You guys and I, as part of the Planning Commission, we should look at other ways to build homes within the city where services already exist, so we don't have to plow more roads for free and add to those expenses for the city. I also think any tax deal of 25 years is extreme. A lot of us won't be here in 25 years for whatever reason, whether we move on or otherwise. So we shouldn't consider those extreme tax deals. It's excessive and puts a burden on us for a long, long time. So I'd appreciate it if you vote no on the tax deal.
Thank you, Matt. Any more public comment?
CJ Tom Gray, Ward 3. The tax abatement for 25 years, we keep being told that we don't have money for roads. Yet, we're going to use our taxes, and being somebody that has multiple rentals and oversees multiple properties, the prices that he was talking about is within the market of what normal rentals are. Not in my market. We don't have anything up that high. Nice homes, but nobody, when we do list something in that price range, we don't get any activity on it at all. So, and they're very nice. So my question is, does it make any sense to do tax abatement? I agree that we need some housing and that we need to bring some more businesses in, but I don't think that this price point or this market is what Hillsdale needs unless who wants to move here and drive on these roads? So that's all I have to say.
CJ, one moment, please. How many properties do you manage?
100.
Do you have off the top of your head, what's about the average rent that you charge?
Probably, I have everything from multiple, an 8 unit all the way down to single family homes. And they vary in amenities, but our higher end, our middle is probably $1,200 to $1,400 a month.
Okay.
And those are like 3 to 4 bedroom.
Okay.
So.
Christian Winter, Ward 1. So we have a number of good contractors in Hillsdale County who are local and do good work, Stoll Construction, for example. They've decided that this work, this kind of development, is not profitable enough for them to build. Why? Those in town who know the city and community know the market better than those who do not live and work here. Further, if we are to build new homes, it'd be much better for the city to find an arrangement with one of these local contractors to keep the money in town rather than with some larger out-of-town developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Hey, my name's Russell, Ward 4. First, I want to apologize for the way I'm dressed. That's why you're up there and I'm down here. I'm in the middle of doing one of those renovations that Sam is talking about, so I'm covered in drywall paint here. Because I do think that there's a way to improve the current housing that we have in Hillsdale. But even if there's not, even if the argument is a given that we need more housing, I don't think it has been proven clearly that this is the right approach. I'm on EDC as well. I'm young, wet behind the ears, probably made a bunch of my EDC fellow board members upset with the questions I was asking at our first meeting about this, or the first meeting that I was a participant in. But I struggle to be convinced that this does anything to solve the actual supply, the missing supply. It's been stated that the average income, household income in Hillsdale is $80,000. That number makes no sense to me. I just looked up on michigan.gov. The average in the state of Michigan is $60,000. So we're supposed to believe that Hillsdale is $20K higher than the rest of the state? That doesn't make any sense to me. As far as I understand it, and I'm a transplant, I've been here for 6 years, but I love the city and I want to see the city grow in an organic, good way. I think it's the best place to raise a family. I think it's the best place to live. That's why I choose to live here. But in order for those things to remain the case, we need to make sure we're using this one opportunity. Hillsdale's a small town of 7,000 people. We have one lot primed for development. And it seems like without your pause, we're going to be building homes that 90% of the community can't afford. That seems like a blunder on first base to me. We have one shot to do this well. We should think through that. We should make sure that we're actually meeting a real need. I agree with the argument that we should use local contractors. If the developer's open to that, I think that would be a great thing. I'm generally skeptical of using government subsidies to incentivize behavior that private citizens could and should be doing. I mean, the argument that there is strong demand would be proven if there were multiple developers lining up to bid on this deal. Are there multiple developers? Have they offered similar deals? Is this the only offer on the table? What does that communicate about the demand? So, and I think the biggest argument is there's an opportunity cost if we go with a high income only housing development, and that might cause us to misfire. And I think the town of Hillsdale deserves better than that. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you, Russell.
My name is David. I moved here 10 years ago when I was in the Army to come to school. My wife and I fell in love with this place. We had a family. We found a rental in town. It's a very old house, kind of like some others we described. We found it very charming. In fact, we loved this place because of that and because of the community we had. It was a home owned by a citizen of the town. It was maintained by a citizen of the town, and it was a great place to come. When we came back here 3 years ago after more time in the Army to live here to raise a family, and I own some property near this development. To me, I'm not an economist like some of you all, but I did study politics, and this seems like the very definition of rent seeking. And I would echo the arguments that have been made about if there is really a demand for this, if there's really a market for this, great. If the company wants to make an investment and profit from it, I have no objection to that. It seems crazy though to add subsidies for it. And also I'll just add, in my time in the Army, I lived in a lot of cookie cutter neighborhoods like this that were purported to be beautiful. The homes are often cheaply constructed. There's a lot of corners that are cut by mass home builders. I've experienced that firsthand, owned some of those homes and regretted it. 25 years, I'd be impressed if these houses last that long, to be honest. I don't know the value of their homes or how they built it, but I'm skeptical of cookie cutter neighborhoods. And I would echo a comment made at a previous meeting that one of the charms of Hillsdale is that we live in it's a very conservative community, and it's a community that has a lot of beautiful homes that can be reclaimed, and this seems to be out of step with that. So I'd encourage you to vote against it. Thanks.
Thank you, David.
Sam Negus, Ward 3, I believe I was the author of the previous mentioned comment. I am very reluctant to say anything here and commit an act of ignorance. It sounds like a lot of work has gone into thinking about this and crunching the numbers to figure out whether this is affordable and so on. The gentleman's presentation was very good, very impressive. These seem like they're, in a way, well-built houses. I'm sure he knows his business, and maybe this is a good development. Maybe these houses would sell. Maybe it's necessary. I would echo all of the comments to the effect that it's a little hard to believe that if the demand is that high, it's impossible to make it happen on its own. I haven't seen the numbers to be sure on that, so maybe that's the case. If that's the case, it seems a shame. The gentleman in his presentation said that these are beautiful houses. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I wouldn't begrudge anyone who wanted to buy one of those houses, could afford it, and was thrilled to move in. One feature that seems unbeautiful to me, that wouldn't draw me to buy them, is the enormous, very forward-facing garages that tell me these are houses for places where people drive everywhere and go straight into their house through a side door from the garage instead of in the front door, and don't want a porch where they can sit and talk to their neighbors. That seems a shame, and it seems very unbeautiful behavior. It is unfortunately modern, or nearly ubiquitous behavior, but it's not the way most of these towns, most of the houses in this town were built. This is a town of an old enough nature that the houses tell you that people sit out front and talk to each other and maybe walk places. And some people do and some people don't, but it would be nice if we would think of housing in that humane and relational way. And if the city is going to give tax incentives for things which do cost money, we're not writing any checks, but tax breaks are a cost. Why not find ways that we can use that to incentivize local builders and local homeowners to, tear down a condemned house on a lot that is an absolute eyesore and a blight, and build a new house right there in architectural style that fits the existing town, and makes the town beautiful, and one lot at a time revives the town instead of just dumping 26 new ones that could be in any town from Maine to San Diego right on the edge of town. Or we could do both of those. I don't know that they're mutually exclusive, but all right.
Thank you, Sam. Any more public comment? Okay, we'll close the podium. Council, Dave, you got something to add?
Sam Fry, the Economic Development Coordinator, had something he wanted to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap what we're doing here tonight with this resolution to approve the brownfield plan. As Brian gave a very nice outline of this project and what this is. We do have a brownfield redevelopment plan before us to consider. Like he said, this plan would be, or this project would be built out in multiple phases over a couple of years and result in 62 or 61, excuse me, new single-family detached homes when all phases of the project have been completed. Just to kind of go back a little bit and provide some context, as it was mentioned earlier, the Economic Development Corporation of the city has owned this current parcel of property, which is about 22 acres, since 2006. And so since that time, they have made many repeated efforts to try to find a developer. They did sell off lots in phase one, individual lots. It was a very long, painstaking process, and ultimately, they were not, selling it at a rate that would result in completion of the subdivision. And then specifically for these two parcels, the 5-acre parcel that has already been developed into the duplexes, as well as this project for the 22 remaining acres, this land was listed with Christy Clemens, a local realtor. It was listed for several years, and so shortly before this project took place, the EDC did sell another 18 acres out there in Three Meadows to a local individual who was interested in building a few homes. But the offer that we had received from Alan Edwin to do the duplexes in the first part and to do the second phase of the project, the EDC overwhelmingly felt that that was the best offer because this builder has the capacity to actually do the project. It was always the goal of the EDC to see that land eventually sell and to see the subdivision finished building out, consistent with the original plan from '99. So, there were local developers who had looked at it. Ultimately, they passed on it because the reality is very few local developers have the ability to front, $2 million for infrastructure and carry all of the costs, that they would be required to finance with something of this scale. So having a developer like Alan Edwin, the EDC felt was the best way to see the subdivision be built out. And as a reminder, it was about a year ago when this council had approved phase one of the project, where we used a workforce pilot for the duplexes. And we received feedback at the time that one of the things that was really wanted and desired by council and the community was more for sale, market rate housing. So that was feedback that the EDC and the developer took to come up with this concept, which would be 80% for sale market rate, because there was a desire for that in the community. And so with this brownfield request, or with the brownfield plan approval, they're requesting reimbursement for eligible activities that are allowed by Act 381. So I want to emphasize, I think it's important to understand with this brownfield TIF, what's actually taking place is the TIF reimburses those eligible expenses through property tax revenues generated by this development project itself, and only this project. So that financing structure means that this project would not be subsidized by current tax revenues or existing revenue streams that the city has. So essentially, by using this TIF, it allows us to create a new revenue stream for the city and attain. And so when you look at it from that point of view, it's also important to note that using the same TIF structure, it allows the city to shift the risk associated with the project and the financing from the city to the developer, because if they don't actually build the homes and sell it, there's no incremental increase in property tax revenues and they don't get reimbursed. Whereas traditionally with a development like this, the EDC or the city would have to come up with $2 million to build out the infrastructure to make these sites buildable. That was something that was tried early on in the Three Meadows project, and ultimately the city got left on the hook. So we feel that strongly that it's not prudent or in the best interest of the city to assume that risk, to put that on the taxpayers, which is why we specifically looked at this brownfield tool, and it's why it's the right tool to see this kind of project over the finish line. So I know it was mentioned before, kind of why now, why other developers may have passed. We have new tools now, as it was mentioned, expanding the Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act to include eligible housing cost activities is something that's new. But also this project requires a developer that has the capacity to actually build out this number of homes, to put in the infrastructure and to front all those costs. Again, the current taxable value of the property is $0 because it's owned by the EDC, which is tax exempt. Because it's been owned by the EDC for the past 20 years, the city hasn't received any tax revenue whatsoever on this property. So really what we're looking at the end of the day is taking a property that is currently not on the tax rolls, putting it back on the tax rolls. The EDC will also, this will complete the sale of their final land out there in Three Meadows, which I know it's long been a goal of the mayor and this council and others to see the city sell its vacant land to complete those projects and kind of eliminate that issue for us. So this would accomplish both of those purposes. In year 25, it's estimated that the taxable value of this development for the city will be $11 million approximately. So going from a taxable value in the parcel to from zero to $11 million means the city will receive about $260,000 in tax revenue every year in perpetuity from this project. So I think that's important to consider. What we're asking tonight, the EDC has worked on this project for years, as I mentioned. It's gone through 2 separate boards. The EDC has worked specifically with Alan Edwin for over 2 years between phase 1 and this project and negotiating a purchase agreement for the land. And then the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority reviewed and considered the Brownfield plan that we have in front of us, and they did recommend its approval to council. So, I just want to emphasize that there's a lot of work that went into this. Like it was said, there were a lot of numbers that were crunched from the developer. City staff invested a lot of time into making sure that we felt that this was a financially sound investment for the city that has long-term benefits to us from an economic perspective, building our tax base up, getting a parcel back on the tax rolls, while also kind of mitigating that critical housing shortage that we are seeing here in the community. So with that being said, it is the recommendation to go ahead and adopt the Brownfield plan as presented. I'll be happy to answer any questions from council, or if there are questions that specifically are directed to the developer, we can ask those at the time.
Thank you, Sam. I have a question. It might be a stupid one, but it's something that's confused me about this. So my understanding, which I think is a pretty good understanding of tax increment financing, is that the taxes are frozen at a certain level. Each year when they rise, the increments are what are caught for whatever, or in this case, they would go towards the developer. But the tax revenue out there is 0 currently. So what are we freezing the taxes at? What's the amount going to be? So is it going to be when we sell them the property, there's going to be an assigned amount of tax revenue?
So what you're right about is currently the taxable value of the property is $0 because it's owned by the EDC. Now, they're going to put in the infrastructure. They're going to make that $2 million investment before they see a penny of reimbursement. But what happens is when they start building and ultimately selling the homes, that increases the taxable value of the property. So in the Brownfield plan that's in the packet, you'll see there's a table and it breaks down the increase in taxable value on a per year basis. So as that taxable value, that's the amount that gets captured by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and goes towards reimbursing those eligible activities outlined in the plan.
So the part that's captured by the city is the taxable value as set by our assessors.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any questions for Sam? Councilman Beer?
Sam, when was the, let me see, when was Three Meadows project actually begun? The original date?
1999.
1999, that was when the city went and purchased the land?
No, so at the time there was a private developer
Okay.
Who was interested in building it out, and they worked on the project from 99 to 2006. For that project, the city actually did pay to install the infrastructure for phase 1. So if you look at the houses that are currently out there, the 12 houses, they put in the roads and the water and the sewer for that. Ultimately, the developer walked away from the project, and so the city had to basically eat that loss of the money that they had spent on putting in the infrastructure.
Do you know what the cost on that was?
I'd have to go back and look, but I know it was, do you have an idea, Dave, off the top of your head?
It was several $100,000 at that time.
Correct.
Because it was actually funded through the BPU and it was written off.
Yep. Oh, for putting their power and water and stuff in?
Yeah. Okay. It was at least $250,000 minimum.
And currently the city's receiving nothing, 0, correct?
That's right.
This developer's gonna come in and spend $1.8 million to put the infrastructure to actually allow for lots to be sold, or he's gonna put the homes in and then, and he's gonna assume 100% of the risk.
correct.
So the city would only be out, say, said developer, just being devil's advocate, say they put the 1.7 million in, and it doesn't pan out like they foresee, and so the city ends up with lots on the infrastructure on a road that are now more sellable. And I don't see any risk on the city. And from the standpoint that they're gonna do all the hard work, putting the infrastructure in. Another thing to consider too, though, because people are saying, well, the city won't receive anything for, well, they keep saying 25 years, and I don't know where they get to 25, but I'm seeing 20 years. Is it 25 or 20?
Yeah, so what I would ultimately say too is, so the number in there, that's the most conservative estimate, right?
Okay.
That's based on how long we think it's gonna take to pay back those reimbursed costs. If they're building, let's say, I think Brian said the pace is approximately about 10 homes a year. Now, if they pre-sell these homes and the demand is significant, they're a home builder that obviously can scale up and build more than 10 a year. And so if they complete the project early, they can get actually reimbursed, before the 20-year mark potentially. So what we presented to council is the worst case scenario. That's the longest potentially that it would take to reimburse them, but there's a good chance it could be shorter.
So there's no direct money being paid to the developers by said city, correct?
So the tax revenues from this project are gonna go to reimburse them from the
No,
cost.
no,
So there's no money from the city's general fund, there's no capital
Okay.
outlay from the city, no existing revenue streams are being impacted in any way.
But another thing to consider too, is the fact that actually the city will receive something in the 20 years once they put the homes in, because if I'm not mistaken, we do own the BPU, and we receive, is it a 6% pilot? Is it 6% or 4%?
That is correct.
Okay, so these homes are gonna be using our power, our water, our sewer, and so the city is gonna benefit from a higher usage, I would think, and still get some monies, but at the end, you're looking at, they've had this, well, from the EDC, from year 2006, so 18 years, and we're receiving $0. And then you have a developer come in and wanna spend this kind of money, and create more customers for our BPU. I have to struggle on why this wouldn't be a good thing. And currently, one of the reasons that we have the issues where we have to do the SADs in this community to address the road situations is because our tax base is so low for the size and the number of miles of roads that we have. And looking down further on like you said, I probably won't be here in 25 years, but I want the people in 25 years to have a better tax base, a better housing market, newer homes. I think it's so much more of a win-win. And when you aren't talking about a huge financial commitment from the city. That's all I have. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Tony. Councilman Wolfram?
Just a couple of things. One is that in Brian's presentation, when you saw the diagram, the existing tax base was that blue rectangle, but the existing tax base is 0.
Yes.
So all the increased tax base is going to be going to reimburse the developer. And if you look at the Michigan Growth Advisors analysis, the infrastructure improvements that they're gonna make is 1.779 million. But there's another 3.624 million, which is the affordable housing financing gap, which is going to basically reimburse them for having a lower rent. And there's another $1.3 million in interest that they're going to be reimbursed for. That's how you get to the $7 million. And so I just wanted to, make it clear that I know Brian did a nice job up there, but the blue rectangle is 0 when we're looking at the tax increment financing. So you won't be receiving any tax revenue for 25 years. Just so that we're aware of the fact that there's no tax revenue coming from the 62 housing unit. And if they don't sell the houses, then they can rent them. So that this may not be all single-family owned homes.
You just told me that the blue part, the taxable, was gonna be the taxable value set by our assessor. Gary's saying that it's gonna be zero. That was the question that I was asking just a couple minutes ago. Are we gonna get anything from it or not?
Okay, so I understand your question now. So right now, there's $0 taxable value.
Yes.
So if you were to go back to that graph or whatever, there wouldn't necessarily be that small blue box for this project. But what happens is they get fully reimbursed for the entire increase from zero, like I said, to whatever the taxable value is as they build that parcel out. So full tax capture for that 20 years goes to reimburse them for their costs. Once their costs are fully reimbursed, then that full tax revenue that we would get on $11 million taxable property goes to the city. It goes back on the general tax rolls. I think I'm understanding what you're asking.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Gary.
Yeah, but I'm also correct that, is that not correct, that if they don't sell the houses, that they can rent them?
I'll let Brian answer that. It's their plan is to sell them, but he can possibly speak to.
Yeah. Thank you, excellent question, Councilman Wolfram. So the plan right now, and the plan going forward, is to sell the homes first. That's the first option. We're gonna be outlaying the $1.8 million. So what we wanna have is, if we build these homes for, what we have to build them for, if they're not selling, we need to have an off-ramp to make ourselves comfortable with putting that capital at risk. So it is in no way a bait and switch where we're gonna build these houses and put them on the market for one day. We have a sales team of, I think, 50 sales professionals that work for Allen Edwin Homes. It's better for us financially to get our capital back immediately than to have them leased up. What this provides us to do, and we do it in different communities, it allows us to, if we do a for rent community, we like to do it all for rent or a substantial portion of it in one block group. It's easier to maintain, it's easier to manage. What we can do in communities like this that we're developing is we'll do one here, one there, one there. It allows us to offload a house that's not selling. So Copper Bay would buy it and then lease it out. But it is kind of, think of it as an off-ramp that we can use.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to imply that that's what you were gonna do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that the council is aware of that's a possibility. If for some reason these houses aren't selling, then they would end up being rented.
Thank you, Councilman Wolfram.
And I think we had some technical corrections. If I call on Joe real quick.
Could I just clarify 2 points, if I could? The first being the duration of the brownfield plan. You're correct that the brownfield plan is 25 years. The reimbursement to the developer, however, is only 20 years. I want to make sure everybody understands that. The final 5 years of the brownfield plan is written to allow the city's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to capture into its local brownfield revolving fund, which would allow it to invest in whatever other projects it would like to in the future. So just wanted to clarify that. And the second point would be, in that hypothetical scenario, Councilman, that you raised, if any of these were to convert to rental properties, that would actually shorten the duration of the brownfield plan. So the brownfield plan's a function of the taxes that are generated. We're making an assumption here that 80% of the homes developed will be subject to a homestead exemption, therefore not paying the 18 mil school operating tax. If they were rental property, they would not be homestead. That would mean more taxes being paid and then paying back the eligible activities more quickly. So just wanted to offer those two clarifying questions. Thanks.
Councilman Palladino. You said more taxes being paid, but is Allen Edwin gonna pay the taxes to the city if they're rented?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Well, the owner of whoever, the Copper Bay, would be the owner of those homes and subject to paying the taxes.
At the full tax rate?
Full, yeah, because they wouldn't be owner occupied if they were rented, so they wouldn't have a homestead exemption.
And those taxes wouldn't be captured by Allen Edwin?
They would be captured by the brownfield plan, and they would therefore, you would pay back the same dollar amount more quickly, therefore shortening the duration of the brownfield plan.
Okay, yeah, but whether they're sold or rented, Allen Edwin is gonna collect the tax increment.
The brownfield authority would collect it and make a payment to Allen Edwin, yes, correct.
How long will the homes be on the market before they're rented?
Actually just talked to my boss about this morning on the way in. It's a function of what time of year we're in. So we start 3 homes a day. We want to sell 3 homes a day on average. This time of year, we're seeing homes in the market for longer because people don't want to move before Thanksgiving. So spring to summer, we expect the homes to sell faster. What we're actually seeing is that people are contacting the city looking if they can buy sites already. So I think we wouldn't want to have it be on the market for over a year. We don't like to take care of homes that are finished over a year. We start homes, when we dig the basement, they're available for sale immediately, so they can do pre-sold. We can finish them and do specs, but this is not going to be like a 1 month and we stop them. We want these to sell first before we convert them to rentals.
There's no contractual requirement for keeping them on the market for a certain period?
No.
Okay.
Short answer, simple answer, no.
Any other comments, Dave?
Brian, could you just comment on the fact that the project is phased in? You're not, I just want to make clear that you're not planning on building 61 homes or starting them in the first year. As you've proposed, it's 10 homes a year.
Yep. So what we're looking to do is 10 homes a year, which is an absorption rate of less than 1 per month, which we're very comfortable with to make this plan work. And so if we see an uptick or an absorption rate faster than that, we can turn our dial up and build faster, which again would shorten the TIF. I think one thing that's I'd like to point out is that we're all incentivized to shorten the TIF to the shortest amount of time possible. If we can have this site overproduce, and I want to point out the TIF table is built out at a 1% inflation rate assumption. So the TIF table is a projection. If we have inflation higher than that, if the cash flow back to the company's faster, that'll shorten the TIF. But to Dave's point, right now, kind of our baseline to make this work within the 20 years is 10 homes a year for sale. If we have to convert some to rental, that'll accelerate the repayment. If we build out, in the first couple of years, 13, 14, 15 homes a year, that'll allow more homes to hit the tax rolls, and it'll pay back the city faster.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes.
We, first of all, I want to correct, there's 8,200 residents in the city of Hillsdale, not 7,000. Let's get those figures straight. You got 50% of the tax value for the next, I believe, 12 years. So we have done something for the college too. We do need housing in this town. There is a lack of it. We also have Aldi's coming. Myers right now is bringing employees from other stores to fill the lack of workers here. The college, within 3 years, will build a hotel. They're going to need at least 100 employees. Maybe someday the Kiefer House will be done, and they'll need employees there. There is a growth here. There is demand. Where do we get the workers? Are they going to drive from Adrian, Jackson, other counties to come here and work if the wage is small? No, they're not. I'm glad you answered it, that you're only going to build 10 at a time, and you're going to see if you can sell them. I don't want to see a whole bunch of homes just sitting there. But the land's set there for all this time, and we're not collecting any tax revenue on it. Here we have a chance to do something. I mean, Hillsdale stayed small, but we've got to grow a little bit. We can't stay 100 years back. We take 3 steps forward, then we take 10 steps backwards? No. We continue, but we use it as a smart pace. We pay attention to what's going on. Some of these houses, $260,000, that's way beyond me. Way beyond my price range. I am retired now, but I still, between my wife and I, we make that over $80,000. But I've worked for every penny I've earned. And that's through hard work. And I've been in Hillsdale. I've seen what's going on. Yes, there's a concern about the fire department getting there. That is up to the railroad, which they claim they're going to fix the bridge in 2 years. That is the claim they're making. So there is a vision in works. Can we connect off of Bacon? No, because that's different property that we can't get into, and we have to stay away from it. I am all for this because right now that property is bringing us nothing. Same way up there on Manning Street, the one with the $1 million home.
It was $300 is what they were collected a year off of taxes on it when nothing was there.
Now they're getting $8,800. Do the math. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Councilman Palladino?
Who will pay for the maintenance of the infrastructure during the 25-year TIF period?
What infrastructure specifically are you talking about with this? The roads? The roads and electric? So I think, and Dave can add some color to this too, but the city will receive some Act 51 monies for those roads. But also when you look at brand new infrastructure being installed, the useful life of that infrastructure will far exceed the payback period. So it's not going to be a net drain in terms of having to maintain that during the period of the repayment of the TIF.
We were told last meeting that within 15 to 20 years, a road is essentially ready to be rebuilt.
I'm not sure if that was a reference to brand new infrastructure, maintaining what's currently there. If we resurface it, I don't know if...
Is Jason still
I don't know
there?
if Jason could shine some light on it, but...
So to address Sam's comment about Act 51, Jason and the city engineer did some checking to see, to give us a kind of a amount that we'll receive for adding that mileage to our Act 51 map. We think it's gonna be somewhere between $5,000 to $6,000 a year to maintain that road. We won't have much maintenance on it until year 8. You thought
crack filled? Yes, sir, about year 5 to 8, we'll start our first crack fill on it. Probably year 12 to 15, put a chip seal on it, continue with overband crack seal as well. And then with the amount of traffic there, we should be able to get to 25, 30 years, because the only thing big is gonna be back there is trash trucks. After everything's built, the road's done, it's very local traffic. 25 years would be a good assessment on this.
Thank you, Jason. Do you know the approximate cost of crack filling, chip sealing during that 25-year period?
So crack fill through that area there, and I'm talking the whole subdivision back there, you're probably $1,400 per application. Chip seal, we're probably close to $7,000 to $8,000 every 5 to 8 years on average. The amount of Act 51 money we're looking at getting is going to be about $6,000 on average a year.
Okay.
So over 20 years, we could definitely recoup that cost.
Okay.
For sure.
And then
The other part, I'm so sorry, Judge.
No, please.
The one thing I hear that's different than some of the other subdivisions is this one, we have worked very much with Eleanor Homes too. Everything will be up to MDOT spec on this. The curb, the gutter, the street. It's not gonna be a private street build, if you will. It's gonna be up to a street standard.
So could we expect a total reconstruction in 25 years?
If we can keep it more than that, with the street, with the local volume, we shouldn't need it. We can do a 2-inch mill at that time too. Try to get that to 30 to 32 years.
And what's the cost of that?
So a 2-inch over mill, oh, you had to ask me that. You're probably looking at 115, 120,000 for the whole, I'm talking whole subdivision.
Okay. And if that's successful, what is your time frame for a total reconstruct?
30, probably 35 years, 35, 40. It all depends on the subbase underneath.
Okay.
So we'd have to get some core samples out there and go from there, but with what we've seen on the other roads, we have any problems with them. They're already 20 years old now.
Okay, and the cost of the total reconstruction in today's numbers in 30 to 35 years?
To do the whole thing? If it's
Well,
just the...
I want to interrupt on this line of questioning. Jason, we really can't answer this question because if you're basing it off what we're replacing now in the city, we're replacing infrastructure that was built subpar. So we're replacing water and sewer lines that were, I don't even know how old, like on Westwood. When was that built up, Jason?
30s, late 30s, 40s.
Yeah, so we're replacing that infrastructure.
60s actually.
And we're almost 80 years into it. So given a number, what we're building to the standards today is much higher than what we have in the past. So it's difficult to actually give you an accurate number.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Dave. And that's where I was going to put the next was, because we're only talking about to put it on the top, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Everything underground's a different scenario. So that's where I was sort of getting ready to say next.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking surface maintenance, so the dollars are, substantially less.
Okay. And so then we wouldn't expect a total reconstruction like we have for, Monroe, Barry, et cetera.
Absolutely, I mean, with new plastic water main, ductile, everything that is available to us. Instead of years ago that we had wooden water main, cast iron, Orangeburg's pipe, all that stuff has been out of the market. It's way better than the system we have now.
Do you have an approximate cost for plowing, dial-a-ride, police and fire services for this area? Sorry, some of that's out of your
No,
domain.
so I can definitely, on the winter maintenance, so right now back there, because our trucks can't get through, we do all of them with 1-ton trucks. It takes a long time to do 1-ton trucks because you're pretty much just pushing the cul-de-sacs. If that gets opened up, at least on our end, for most of it, our big trucks will be able to go through there and wipe that out and get that time down to significantly less plow time than we have now, because we use our big trucks and just move through there.
Okay, but we are gonna be providing for these, services?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, so the NEZ, what is that, about a 60% tax reduction? 50, thank you, Kim. Yeah, that structure seems to make a little bit more sense, though I still opposed all of them, but at least there, we're sort of covering the cost of adding new residents. We sort of have this idea, similar actually to the federal government, that we can add millions of new residents, except here it would be hundreds. And there's no new cost to the city, so we're not taking on a new risk. But if we just take 60 homes at average occupancy of 4, we're talking about 240 new residents. That has a cost, right? Every new resident is more strain on city services, more strain on roads, more travel. So I think this idea that it's basically free to add new citizens actually isn't correct. And actually what the cost of a citizen is represented by the general tax rate. That's what we say a citizen costs to add to the city.
So I just want to address that just a little bit. Okay. Property taxes are only part of our revenue stream. Our state shared revenue, a part of that calculation is based on population. So when you add residents, we do get more money through the state shared revenue.
Right, but again, we're not able to pay for our current needs with our current residents who pay both property taxes and receive state. Yes, right, we get the Act 51 money, it's totally insufficient, the state is ripping us off, all granted. Okay, I have a bunch more, but I will pass it on for a minute if anyone else has anything to add to this. Keep going. Another concern is, and actually I'm glad you're up here, would be the Headley Amendment. So we're projecting 225 right now, but if we have a general recession in the next 25 years, which I know we could say the housing market's stable, but no economist would predict what's gonna happen 25 years in the future. We could see a very sharp reduction in the taxable value of these homes, and as we've seen, it would take decades potentially to recoup that loss at a 5% gain per year, assuming the maximum allowed under law. I think I was talking to you about this. We just met our pre-2008 taxable value in the last, 7 to 8 years, something like that. It took almost a decade. So this is another concern. We're projecting out what the taxable value is going to be in the future, but we actually don't know what the condition of these homes will be in 25 years, and we also don't know whether there will be a general decline in housing values in the city over that period.
Those are valid concerns. Those are, as you stated, we can't predict the future.
Can I add a little context? So the brownfield plan by statute cannot run any longer than 30 years. With the final 5 years reserved to the local brownfield revolving fund. So really what the point you're raising is the difference between the 20 that we're projecting up to a maximum of 25 to the developer. And that's the risk that they're taking. You're absolutely right. If we miss the target on future taxable value here, and this project generates a lot less tax increment than anticipated, the developer has a big financial problem. The deal will be developed, they just will have not made any money on the transaction. And then I would just want to add one point on the questioning or concerns around rebuilding of the infrastructure. It's important to note that the local brownfield revolving fund that's going to have about $2.1 million in it in year 20 based on our current projections could be used to fund all that infrastructure work that you're talking about. That would be an eligible activity.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Yeah, I appreciate that you're considering your risk. I'm wondering, year 25, we see a 40% reduction in total home values across the city or something like that. All of a sudden, this projected revenue will be substantially decreased. That's at least a possible concern. I have a question about the vacancy rate in 2022. I think most people who have lived here know that the vacancy rate in 2022 is not a good sample size for the city of Hillsdale. I don't know if in my 10 years we've ever had a tighter housing market during those two post-COVID years. I wonder if we have sort of a rolling average, that's not the right word. Hopefully you know what I mean. An average over, 10, 20 years.
Well, currently, you mentioned Hillsdale, but just statewide it's 2%. We're considerably under statewide. If you look at the St. Louis Federal Reserve has actually tracked vacancy rates, using census data for like the last 100 or so years. The average in most communities tends to be around 7 or 8%. So, if you want to use that as a base mark for what's kind of considered a healthy market, maybe it could be somewhere in that number, but we have been substantially lower for years and we're still substantially lower than what the vacancy rate is for the state. We don't have 2024 data yet, but the 0.9% is certainly accurate. And just anecdotally, with all the individuals that contact the city that are looking for homes, maybe they've accepted a job, at the college or at the hospital, and many times these preferred candidates of our local employers have to actually turn down jobs because they can't find housing. So, the data bears it out that there's a shortage. If you look at the increase too, just in property values within the city, and this is something that Kim can attest to because I spent a lot of time looking at the data, we've seen a very sharp uptick in property values here within the last 5 years. And so that's also another sign, of using the data to determine, if there is a severe housing shortage. So the data supports it, anecdotally it's supported by the interactions we have with, our residents all the time.
Okay, so I'll begin with the anecdote. We subsidize the Hillsdale Commons project through the NEZ. 2 of those are still for sale. They've been for sale for 500 days. Another one is for sale about $350 to $400. I think those are the 2 prices that they're listed at. One of them has been for sale for 2 years.
I believe they list them before they start building, so that it's been for sale is maybe not, it hasn't been available.
Okay. Yeah, I drove out there and it looks like they're completed to me. I mean,
I believe they're getting close. They were talking to us about starting the next phase.
okay. Just looking at Zillow, I mean, is houses from 150 to 500,000, basically every price point, and they've been on the market for months in many cases. So
those in the city?
In the city.
Okay, because I just pulled up when that comment was made. I pulled up my Realtor.com app.
Yep, that's what I did.
Okay. We currently have 13 active listings in the city. The low price is $169.9. It's been listed for 103 days. The high price is $499.9. It's been listed for 105 days.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. That
So
seems
3 months.
right. That seems like a healthy market to me. About a 3-month
Yes.
period for selling. That doesn't seem to indicate a housing crisis. Of course, this is the government, so everything's a crisis. But that doesn't seem to quite match with the experience. The no fixer-upper thing, this is interesting to me. Nearly everyone my age I know, including myself, bought an absolute dump, and they specifically wanted to put $50,000 to $100,000 into it for the reasons of the Headley Amendment. I now have a $150,000 home, and I'm not going to get taxed on that for probably 15 to 20 years. I mean, that's really nice. So this idea that people don't want fixer-uppers is a little concerning. Our obligation should be to encourage the homes that currently exist to be fixed up, right? We want to maintain our beautiful homes, our beautiful historic homes.
Can we respond to that really quick?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
to kind of answer that. So when we look at, housing, we need both renovation and rehab of our existing housing as well as new development to contribute to our housing stock, because as it was mentioned, you look at 60% of our homes built before 1970. We know, a number of them, sometimes they get blighted, they get burned down in a fire. So we're losing old homes every year, and the reality is we do need to add new housing stock. We certainly want to encourage renovation, and this council's done that. They've done that through programs like the NEZs to, encourage people to invest in the homes. For a while, we had rental rehab to, assist homeowners that were interested in. And so you if you look at it from a comprehensive view, I think, we would just say that both of those things are good, and both of those things that, should be encouraged. But at some point, you do need some new building. We have had virtually zero new building in the last, 10 to 20 years.
We've had some up by the college, very ugly homes, but some nice party barns that irritate the neighbors. And the council should do something about that. We should have standards for building architecture that looks historic. Now, if there is a housing crisis and it's so severe, why can't these houses be built at a market rate?
So these homes are being built at a market rate, and I'll let the developer add to this, but one of the things that I want to make perfectly clear is, so we talked to a number of our local home builders here in Hillsdale. And if you were in the market, let's say, to have one of them build a new home today, it would probably quote you a cost of about $250 a square foot. That is just a realistic price in terms of materials, labors, minimal, probably, minimal profit for that home builder. So if you're looking at, let's just say a 1,600 square foot home, because this development right here, we're looking at a range between 1,600 to 2,200 square feet. But for a $1,600 square foot home, if you're building brand new, and you just assume, a $250 square foot cost, that's $400,000 right off the bat. And that's also probably assuming that, you don't need to factor in the cost of adding utilities, like roads, electric, water, sewer. When you look at the cost for that, it could be anywhere between $20,000 to $50,000 or more in added price per unit. So the reality is, it's not cheap to build new homes in today's market, but through this TIF, through using this, we're actually, not only does it make possible this development without the city having to pay for the infrastructure and install that up front, but it actually does have an effect to lowering the final cost per unit. And so if somebody else was to do the project, it'd be substantially higher. So that's
the basic problem. If one of our local contractors was to do the project, they wouldn't get these benefits. And again, that doesn't answer the question, why. Thank you, Bruce. Bruce is getting mad again. If there is a market and if there is a crisis for housing, why isn't the market meeting the demand? Why do we have to subsidize some builders and not others?
Well, first of all, just to correct that, this council has worked with our local developers. If you look at the Stoll project, the neighborhood enterprise zone tool was used there because that was the right tool for that specific project. So when you're looking at these, the projects vary. And so, what you actually need to do to get them across the finish line sometimes depends on the specifics of that project. In this, in this case, the infrastructure costs are pretty cost prohibitive to have to put in all that new electric, water, sewer, and roads. And so that greatly inflates, the project cost. But, to say that the city has not worked with other developers just isn't accurate.
Again,
we have
not what I'm claiming. I'm saying, were other developers given this deal?
Well, we can't talk or speculate about current projects. I'll defer to Dave, but I will say other developers are aware of these tools, and certainly, they're willing to look at them, and this is something that we can bring to council.
Yes, and to answer your question, Councilman Palladino, yes, we had spoken to other local builders, particularly Stoll, looked at the subdivision, and they came back and decided it didn't quite fit their plan, and so they purchased ground from the city out by Dial-A-Ride. And I suspect, because that infrastructure will have to be built to the same city standards as this subdivision, I suspect they will probably propose their own brownfield TIF for that subdivision for the very same reasons. Because it allows that infrastructure to be repaid and not necessarily be added to the top of the sales price, to encourage housing and to encourage sales. I just wanted to add a couple of points in regards to the same topic. So I'm going to talk about my own personal experience 9 years ago, because we all have different varying personal experiences for what we buy, or who we know and what they've bought. But one is as late as today. So 9 years ago when I bought my house, for me and my family of 5, we looked at everything that we could find in the market at that particular time. We could not find something that both my wife could agree upon and met our family needs in town. So we were forced outside the city, and I know I've been criticized for this because I live outside the city, but we could not find anything that met our needs at that time. So we purchased outside the city, as is mentioned from many, that because there is such a shortage, those many folks are pushed outside the city. That being said, today, where I live, it's myself, and there's a house directly to the side of me. That house recently sold in the last couple weeks, and I finally met my neighbors today. And unsolicited, he comes out, introduces himself to me at lunchtime, tells me where he's from, where he was moving into the area, and he told me that he looked at everything he could find, him and his wife did, within the community, and they did not find anything that didn't need less, in their opinion, less than $100,000 worth of work, and they didn't want to do that amount of renovations. So they saw this one outside the city, decided they wanted to move to Hillsdale bad enough, and they bought it, and he thought to himself, I can do the little things over time, but I don't have to spend the $100,000 or more for something that really needs a lot of work. And this just happened at lunchtime when I was getting ready to come back to work after letting my dogs out. He called me in my driveway and told me this exact story unsolicited. And I'm like, oh, okay. Makes sense and kind of, on point with what we'd be talking tonight, but that is the experience many folks are experiencing. And just one additional one, a person I know that was at the college, or is at the college who works. When he moved to town, he couldn't find anything to purchase within town. And so he ended up going to someone that had a house for sale, offering them so much to rent it from them. And then he bought a lot outside the city, and built his family home out there. And he rented that home, and then I think it's probably been sold since. But this is over and over. You talk about where's the data? I ask rhetorically, where's the data? Because we have professionals that are working in this industry for years. Sue Smith, Edwin Allen Holmes, John, they're a consultant. They work all over the state and they see this. And we see it because Sam gets the calls for people asking, can they put their name on the list? The fact that they have 6 duplex units in the price range we're talking about, and 5 of them, they're all filled, and only 1 left they're finishing. So that demonstrates there is a need. And again, they're taking 100% of the financial risk up front. This is just the tool that best fits, as Sam would say, this particular development. I mean, we have the NEZ up by the college NEZ. We have the Stoll NEZ. We have the industrial facilities, the commercial, the CREs. So we utilize these to promote certain things. And when they came out with this particular program with the state, the Act 381, it was the tool we needed to make the subdivision work. The NEZ, they use that in the first phase of Three Meadows, and that's of benefit to the homeowner. That's not of benefit on the front side of it when you're putting in the infrastructure. So again, you look at the tools you have and the toolbox that the state's given us, and that's why we, selected, or this one came to pass. And I think it's important to note, originally, that was a big concern of the EDC board a couple of years ago, that, all these would be rental units. And they expressed heavily that they wanted for sale units. And Brian heard that, and this tool came out that made it possible to talk about the area median income, that these homes are priced too high. Just that on October 15th, Corey Murray wrote an article about Hillsdale County home listings asked for less money in September, but the median price is $267,400 in September and $272,400 from the previous month, and they were in 23. They were about $260,000. So the homes that we're talking about are the county's area median income, or price range, area median price range. So they are appropriately priced, and the tool that's being used is our best bet for this. So, sorry for the lengthy answer.
Yeah, it's not a tool we created ourselves either. All these tax schemes that come from I hate them too, but it's what Lansing sits around and does, is cooks up these things. And
You asked some good questions, especially about the roads and stuff. But who in the last 3 years could say that insurance rates jumped 20%, and nobody can predict what it's going to be in another 10 years with the insurance rates. And it's just, you gotta guess. You just basically gotta guess. Because my insurance rates have gone up 20+% on my home. And it's gotten ridiculous, but you've got to adjust.
Councilman Morrissey.
I just have a quick question for the developer. There was a suggestion from the audience that the houses that you're going to build here won't last very long.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you provided us with a map of the various developments you've done over the years. Looks like over 100 developments in the tri-state area. Could you give us an idea of how long these structures actually last?
Yeah, they are built to code. To start off with, they are 100% built to code. And 6 months after, to be perfectly honest, I took a little offense to that. That sounded like kind of a drive-by shot, and I wasn't happy about it. We're in business for over 30 years. We've never missed a payment to a bank. We've never been late to a payment to a contractor before. Our homes are built exactly to building codes, and in a lot of cases exceed the building codes. We use the same 2x4s as every other builder. I invited everyone in this, local officials, to walk through our homes while they were under construction. I had our VP of construction there, because we want to answer these questions. We build homes at a lower price point than most other builders. We do it because of a couple things. One, volume, and two, the way we organize our building process. It takes most builders on average 9 to 16 months to complete a house from the time the shovel goes into the ground. That increases the financing charges to build a house. We have scheduling set up, and we buy our labor in bulk, and we schedule it out. So there's activity happening on the house every single day. One of the comments I heard at the open house was, my God, these, I drove by here one day, there weren't houses here. I drove by the next day, there was duplexes with landscaping put in. So we pride ourselves on that. I also want to talk about our customer satisfaction. I think one of the slides I had on there, Sam, if you could. Long story short, we do a customer survey of all of our customers 6 months after they move into a house. So you move into a new house, first day you're probably really happy. Live there for 6 months, you start to notice when stuff goes wrong. 90% of our customers, we're I think one of the top in the industry, 90% of our customers would recommend one of our homes to a close family member or friend 6 months after moving in. So, Councilman, right?
So how long do they last?
I mean, 100 years? We've been in business 30 years. I haven't heard of one failing yet.
Councilwoman
You have
Pratt.
to do maintenance on a house to make it last longer. You gotta keep up on your maintenance.
That's true.
And that's gonna be up to the owner.
Yes.
Councilman Beer?
This one's actually for Kimberly. Sorry. I know I was gonna, but, you know, what Josh was saying is, as far as, a market downturn. Okay, we have taxable value, we have assessed value. Just, I know it's kind of just a ballpark, but taxable value compared to assessed value, there's a little bit of difference there.
Yes.
And just like, is taxable maybe 80% of the real value, 70%, or what would you say overall on properties?
So the assessed value is 50% of the market value. Taxable value is something less than that 50%.
Understood.
Right now, let me see if I have those numbers on here. I don't. Yeah, I don't have, the numbers in front of me. Right now, our taxable value, I believe, is about 2/3 of our assessed value. It's increasing more in the last few years because we've had a lot of properties uncapped, because a lot of properties have been selling.
So what you would say then is, if it's 2/3, it'd be like, the taxable value, say 66,000, and the assessed value would be 100,000, which actually double it, but I mean, would that be a good guess?
I mean, that's assuming that the same person owns it over time.
No, I understand that, because once it gets
Right.
sold, it
With
gets
this,
reassessed.
yeah, with this, we're talking about new construction, it's gonna come on at 50% of the current market value.
And so they're gonna be pretty close, if not identical.
Yeah, they're
right?
gonna be the same for.
So even
the
if,
first year.
well, I'm just saying, even if you do have a market correction, say,
Yes,
that you do have a buffer kinda built in, where the taxable value is not gonna get the full brunt of the housing crisis, or if everything drops.
correct.
And then, just by, of course, these are just, you know, annually they would receive, after this, about 228,000 in taxes annually. Now, but on taxes, the city gets 40%, 39? What's the?
So you're referring to how much the city would get when these all come back on the tax rolls after the repayment?
Right, but I mean, on the taxes, the city doesn't get all of that, because
So
some goes.
that $260,000 a year, that is the city share.
Oh,
That
the
doesn't
228?
include- Yep, that doesn't include county, that doesn't include schools, that is just the city
Oh,
share
okay,
per year.
alright, so then-
we would receive 100% of that 260,000.
Well, that's actually 228.
228, and of course, that will, that will scale and increase in the future, because when you factor in inflation and if there's an increase in property values, that number, obviously is going to climb somewhat over the years.
Okay.
So, 228,000 in year 25, and then again, that's in perpetuity. That's a revenue stream that right now doesn't exist, that the city will get every year forever.
Yeah, and just going forward, as far as addressing all the infrastructure problems the city has, it's like, because if, as a council, if we decide not to do this, we're gonna still get zero taxes. And it's not like they've owned it for 25 years, and they are getting some from the first area, I understand that. But on this, part of it, it's not developed because it doesn't have the infrastructure. And by David's comments, it's actually been, we have approached some other builders, but to come up with, basically 1.8 million on the infrastructure, and just, it's a big risk, so, I would really hate the council not to approve this, just so going forward, we don't stay in the same, yeah, I mean, it's kind of thinking down the roads, and I think one of the problems with past councils is, well, we're talking 25 years, well, I'm not gonna be here. Let's just spend it what we want right now, and let the future councils worry about the ramifications of those ill-advised thoughts as far as with our current road situation. So, that being said, I would be very much supportive of this action.
Thank you, Councilman Beer. Councilman Soha?
Thank you, Mayor. Lots of good questions and discussion. I appreciate that. I have a couple questions for the developer. So you said something that just struck me a bit. You said if we do things right a number of times, while you were making your presentation that you'll get your money back. Could you help me understand what that means?
Yes, great question. So what I meant by if we do things right, that means if our data is correct. So if we're targeting the right market, 280 to 360, if we sell these homes the right way, which we know how to do, I think better than anyone in the state, basically saying if we do things right, the risk is on us. And we only get paid back if we build homes that look like this, if we build homes that sell like we're anticipating them to sell, if our data is correct. That is what I meant by if we do things right. And every development we do, we do things right.
Well, I appreciate that. So I have three just big red flags. The first is my police, well, not police, but the fire department and the ambulance services and the dial-a-ride services, which will all be necessary to provide to the development, right now have to go 6 miles out of their way to arrive there. Dial-a-ride's already a money-losing venture. If we have people that are ultimately in workforce housing, which I need to clarify that too, if you would, in a moment. That's really frustrating. I understand that the railroad is supposed to put out for bid to rebuild the bridge or raise it or fill it in 2026, and I just think maybe if that were already there, or if we were able to do an easement in the property that was already sold to connect to Bacon, something to get public safety accessible to the neighborhood without having to go all the way out to Long Lake Road. That would put a little bit ease in my heart, but right now I don't like that at all. What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, we take public health and safety.
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay.
And then I'll.
So real briefly, I can't control the outside infrastructure and the railroads and things like that. It does sound like in 2 years, the railroad is addressing that. And we're gonna be adding these on at, we gotta build the infrastructure, which is gonna take about a year and a half to start, and then it's looking like adding 10 homes a year to that. So it's not if you approve this next summer, we're putting in 61 homes. It's if you approve this, we'll start the infrastructure probably in the spring or summer of next year. And then that'll be completed for phase 1, and then it'll be 10 homes a year after that. So it'll be a gradual increase, but by that time, I think which I have no firsthand knowledge of, it sounds like the bridge will be raised for the railroad.
Well, I'll jump in there, and Jason, if you could come up, because Jason has the firsthand knowledge, but on the MDOT rail, they've committed to us, and they're actually putting that out to bid in 2025 for a 2026 construction.
Yes, sir.
Is what they have committed to us for. Is that correct, Jason?
Correct. We've had correspondence today that is still the plan. They talked about obviously expediting it as much as we can because of the frequency of accidents we've been having, but it's a pretty solid date right now, what you talked about, sir.
Yeah, we haven't seen the plans yet, but that will accommodate our public safety vehicles, and that's been expressed to them as our concern. Now on dial-a-ride, currently dial-a-ride goes out there multiple times a day, and Jason, how many times would you say a bus is out there for Will Carlton?
Any average day, 12 to 15, 20 times, depending through the day, as they have different stops for sparks and key opportunities and so forth throughout the day, not just for the beginning and morning service.
So the point I'm making is they're already out there.
Yes.
So the dial-a-ride probably would not see any additional.
The dial-a-ride has to go all the way out to Long Lake and back, correct?
Lake Wilson.
Lake Wilson.
Correct.
Yes.
Sorry.
Correct.
Yeah, there were L's. There's an L there.
Yeah, they both actually the fire truck and the public safety has to go out there for fire. It has to go out, probably out Bacon, around Lake Wilson to Hallett and come around that way. Particularly if they're in the fire truck and some of their vehicles, I believe probably the 4-wheel drive truck could probably get under Hallett Bridge.
Yes,
Dan, is that? Yeah. So some of our equipment would have to go around, but some of it wouldn't. Yeah.
I understand some vehicles that might fit under there physically because of antennas and other equipment. They go around anyways because they don't want to damage that accidentally. But you know, maybe this plan's a year too fast because I know they're saying the railroad is saying that they're going to do something next year, but until it actually gets done, it's just talk. So, in addition to that, my biggest, like, based on what's happening nationally in the Midwest, in small towns with immigration, and you have a caveat in here, you intend to sell the homes, but if the market doesn't absorb it, then you can rent it, and you're gonna go through some third-party agency, and if I might finish, please, and I cannot consciously vote for a project that has the possibility of going to some state or federally funded program that is going to bring in illegal immigrants to our community, 62 times 4 or whatever, and I can't do that. That would completely change our culture permanently. It is irreversible. What guarantees do I have? Guarantees. Can you amend the contract to ensure that this project will never be utilized for those purposes, even if you can't sell them and they have to go to this this other business?
So your concerns, I think, are well-founded. You've never met me, you've never worked with our company before, so I understand where you're coming from, and your job is to protect your community. Copper Bay is a wholly owned subsidiary of Allen Edmund Homes. It's not a third-party rental agency. I can text with the leasing agent right now to say how many homes are valid and how many homes are filled in Hillsdale. She gets right back to me. The maintenance crews that work on the Allen Edmund Homes, or the Copper Bay homes, are our employees. I've had Sam here pull up the website. This is Copper Bay. You can look at the available homes. This is the only other option if we don't sell. We've got no relationships with any federal authorities. We've got no relationships with state housing agencies and things like that. So if the homes don't sell, can you go to available homes so we can show the council member the prices? So if they don't sell at the first option, which is our first choice, our first preference, they get listed here, and you can see on the map where they are, and you can see the prices they go for. So if you scroll down, you can see, you know, the homes, the models, everything. This is where they would go. So I hope this brings you some trust. That White Cloud home is another workforce housing home, which is the lower rent. But we've got prices on here from $2,700 to $1,900 a month, and so that is where they would go. It would not. Our bread and butter is trust with communities. We started working in Three Rivers 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and it's that trust that allows us to continue to go back for project after project after project. White Cloud was my first project since I've been with the company. I've got letters of recommendations from that city manager that I take to every other city I go and work with. If we burn one of these communities, we're done. If we do what your fear is, and it's a legitimate fear, we're done. So that is not a possibility. As far as adding something into the contract language, we can talk about that in the reimbursement agreement, but I'm happy to put whatever guardrails you'd like on it.
That's nice to hear, actually.
Trust is the most important commodity we deal in with a 30-year-old home builder, and we guard that extremely harshly.
So
with our customers and our municipalities. Sorry for
no, I apologize. We're having a dialogue here. It's fine.
Okay.
So in addition to that, with the, I think you said $1,800, $1,900, and you know, CJ, who's intimately involved in our rental market, says that that's well above what she's able to do within the city. Although you've apparently rented 7 of the 8 duplexes, which is, I saw cars in one of them the other day. so that, I mean, that shows me something. No, I get it, I had to refill mine
Yeah,
too.
and it's
That's
like
why it's
half hour is
moving.
perfect, and then it's like.
So, forgive me for getting off track for a second, the water distracted me.
Sorry. And I called my colleague my water boy, so.
Oh, Lord have mercy, my mind went blank.
He was saying he was willing to put safeguards into the contract to ensure that.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So, I know this is in addition to that, but Sam brought up a good point when, not you Sam, the other Sam, when he was dissenting against this, is the model, the fascia of your homes is not inviting neighborly communication. It's inviting me to push my garage door opener, pull inside, and go and turn on my TV, and then isolate myself, and while I'm watching TV, pull this thing up and pretend that I'm actually interfacing with the world. Whereas my house, you know, most of the houses in the city do have front porches, which invites, my wife and I like to go and sit out after work and have a glass of wine and talk, and people will walk by and we'll wave and we'll say hi, and it's very engaging and neighborly. I know this is a little different because it's going to be an isolated community, but still it would be nice to be able to walk through the community and have that type of interaction. Is there any way to, I know cost savings, I mean, you're going to spend $254,000 a home based on your $15.5 million that you said it was going to cost you to put this out. You're spending that, so I understand why you want the $7 million back or whatever. I don't know exactly what your portion of that is. You want to make some money, I get that. It just frustrates me that that's happening without houses that have the traditional Midwestern style and appeal, historic traditional, not modern traditional, and also that we're not collecting any of the taxable income to be into the city's coffers for at least 20 years, or maybe more if you can sell them all as fast as you can. But if you can't, I don't know, those things are just really hard for me to reconcile.
So the 20-year projection is with 1% inflation, and that's if we sell all of them and don't rent any of them. So if the inflation rate's above 1%, that shortens it. If we lease a couple out, that shortens it as well. So I think when we do these projections, we want to present the city with the worst case, quote unquote worst case scenario, that we're going to recover up to 20 years is what the projections say. And if you peel back the numbers and dive into the numbers, we're not selling you kind of smoke and mirrors. This is 1% inflation rate, 100% owner occupied, with the exception of the 20% workforce housing rental. And so that's how we kind of build our projections and sell to you.
And I think it's important to mention that these are the conservative numbers as far as the payback. And this council has had discussions on the IFEs and the CREs, the commercial and industrial. Well, why doesn't the developer be more, and I know Josh, this was your comment, why doesn't the developer or the builder or owner give themselves a little more time so they don't have to come back to the council and get a correction or an update or an amendment to their plan if they'd have just put down an extra 2 years in case something happens? Because we had this discussion with 221 Industrial coming back, and so in the performance, we put the conservative amount for that 20 years, and with the hopes of the uptake being shorter and the money being the cost being refunded quicker and back on the tax rolls quicker. So that was kind of a an approach to be conservative and not have to come back to council down the road and do an amendment. being cognizant of those comments in previous meetings.
I just have one quick question on the affordable housing financing gap of $3.6 million. How was that derived?
That's derived with a formula published by the state of Michigan, and I'm gonna call on Joe Agnostelli to cover the details on that.
I get all the hard technical questions, so bear with me. The words in the statute say the eligible activity is financing gaps associated with the construction of affordable housing, which requires somebody to decipher what did the legislature mean when they said that. Michigan State Housing Development Authority published guidance, which took about 9 months for them to come up with, but it came out this past winter, and they established the financing gap should be calculated taking HUD's 40th percentile rent, taking that number, dividing by 40% equals theoretical 100th percentile rent. That becomes your control rent, is how they describe it. You take that number and subtract the rent that you're charging to income qualified households equals the gap. And then you take that gap multiplied by the number of units, multiplied by the number of years of affordability equals your subsidy. So that's something that we're gonna need to be, the development team, will need to be income qualifying the residents of those units. They must be below 120% AMI. We need to report that information annually to the Brownfield Authority, who needs to report to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for compliance with that. But hopefully I answered your question on how the math works.
And I just had one other question is, are you getting any money from MISTA for the project as well?
Depends on what you mean by that. Is MISTA providing any direct grant subsidy or debt financing? No. Anytime you have tax increment financing, there's different categories of millages involved. You've got your state school tax millages, your 18 mil school operating, 6 mil state education tax. Then you've got your collection of locally controlled millages, that's kind of everybody else. And then you've got your debt millages. I believe the only debt millage here is a small school debt. So we capture, the Brownfield Authority and City Council has the authorization to capture the non-debt local millages. That's the action you're considering tonight. And then the Michigan State Housing Development Authority needs to approve a separate document that will prepare, if this is approved, that would authorize the capture of the school taxes. So it's sort of an expansion of the Brownfield plan that we send to MISTA, allowing the Brownfield Authority to capture school taxes. So MISTA is involved through the authorization to capture the state school tax millages, but is not providing debt or grant financing.
Thank you. Yeah, my primary apprehensions are I kind of agree. I mean, I very much agree with Bruce. That land's just been sitting out there for years. It's a blight on the city. I'm not so concerned with the way that the houses look so much because it's not really in the city. It's kind of on the outskirts of the city, so it's not a historic neighborhood. It's already a subdivision of the city. It's just an incomplete subdivision. But the biggest things that I have apprehensions about is what Robert mentioned, and that is some sort of, if these houses don't sell, that they will become a haven for immigration, and that's not a right-wing conspiracy. I get articles sent to me from other mayors, other towns. That's happening in Indiana. It's happening in Ohio, Lockland, Ohio, Langsport, Indiana, and Coldwater, Michigan. Frankly, it's happening to our neighbors. So that is something that really does concern me. So I felt really encouraged when you said that there was possibility of some sort of language in the contract that could be amended to make sure something like that never happened. The other big issue that I'm concerned about is just the people that are out there already. And I'll tell you, I ran for state representative this last summer, didn't work out, but I knocked a lot of doors, and that was one of the places that I knocked was that subdivision over there, and they expressed a lot of apprehension themselves, and also a lot of, I don't want to say finger wagging, but we're happy with council for considering this. And those are all people that I represent, so that's something that weighs on me too. And then finally, the last thing is, it just seems like every time we get into one of these, and I would, Dave was talking about all these different statutes that come from the state of Michigan that are economic development statutes. These aren't things that the city of Hillsdale cooks up. They're things that Lansing cooks up, and communities either use them or they don't. Most communities do use them, and our community, I don't know, I guess that's what the administration is there to kind of discover things like that they think will make improvements to the town. But it seems like every time Hillsdale gets involved into one of these things, we're looking at it 10, 15 years down the line and saying, it didn't turn out the way that we thought it was going to be. Hence, I mean, that's what brought us to this point, was one of these deals that didn't turn out exactly the way that it was supposed to go. So those are some apprehensions I have. I really have mixed feelings about this. Appreciate what you guys are trying to do, and I have for a long time looked out at Three Meadows and been like, man, what a shame what's happening with what that never materialized to be what one of our several previous councils ago meant for it to be. And here we have the residents of the Hillsdale are the ones that are left holding the bag on it. So, but the biggest thing is the prospect of, and I don't want to sound paranoid about it, but like I said, it's a real concern. It's really happening in the Midwest, and it's really happening to some of our neighbors that are close to us, where their populations have just exploded and it's quite often centered around workforce housing. So
Yeah, so thank you for your concerns. Couple of things real quick. I just went to the Copper Bay Apply Here page, and you can see the steps we require our prospective thing component, which it goes by workforce housing in some areas, it goes by missing middle in other areas. The exact legal precise term is 80% AMI to 120% AMI. So if I pull this screen up right here, what that looks like for Hillsdale is they couldn't make more than this. So you're looking at family of 6, 110,000, family of 5, 103,000. In White Cloud, we had a family move into one of my first houses. Mom was a preschool teacher, dad's a mechanic. They made $103,000. Last year, Mishta's qualifications were $98,000. And so when they called up our leasing agent, Lexi, Lexi looked at the Mishta chart and said, I'm sorry, you don't qualify. Mishta updated the numbers. I sent it around to the team. Lexi, being on her game, called back the mom, who I should also point out, was living in her in-law's basement with 3 young kids under the age of 8 with a triple stack bunk bed. So you can understand when Lexi called back and said, oh, Mishta just updated their numbers, you do qualify. The mom burst into tears, and they now live in one of the houses up in White Cloud. And so for workforce housing missing middle, that's what we're talking about. If you go, so I should have had this slide made. We're aiming for in the missing middle workforce housing thing is the Goldilocks, right? Mishta puts a cap in order to qualify for the tax incentives that we're seeking on how much you can make. We internally, out of good business practice, put a minimum of how much you can make. So we're looking for people that fall right into that category right there.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I was in no way implying that you guys are like standing behind the podium right now lying to us or like rubbing your hands like, oh, they're going to see how this turns out. You know, I don't think that that's your intention. I'm just, I don't know, going to a worst case scenario, and it didn't mean to imply that you were trying to mislead us to bring people from outside the community into our community. I'm just talking about the possibility of it happening, not the intentional
Yeah.
probability of it happening.
I appreciate your.
Yeah, of course. Councilman Pelton.
So just to clarify, if someone buys or rents your home, they don't qualify for any state or federal, they can't qualify for state or federal housing assistance?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Have you bought the land?
It's under agreement, right?
Okay.
Purchase agreement. The way we develop, and before this, I was in municipal government, and I wish developers would act like this. We don't want to buy the land and then start the entitlement process. We want to get everything done ahead of time, and then, because that way now, let's say we bought this land and this deal didn't happen. Now we're sitting on the land. It's 5 years. It's still a blight on that community, as you said, Mr. Mayor. So we have an option agreement to buy it. So that's where we are right now.
And what's the purchase price on it?
I believe it's 50,000 or 35,000.
It's 155 for the
150.
22 acres. It's based on
Per
a per
both.
lot sale.
That's
or
right.
Per lot.
Yep.
So it's 155,000.
155. Okay. All right. Yeah. Good. Did you consider buying building 1 to 2 bedroom homes?
For our price point, again, we've got a lot of market data. The demand just isn't there, and we hear this a lot, and it's late. I'm probably saying more than I should right now, but a lot of times planners are like, "Well, build tiny homes, build this and that." The market's just not there. They look cute unless you're in a vacation community. Like I said, I know I've said it 1,000 times. We build 800 homes a year. We know it sells. The value for us is providing, the upstairs washer and dryer for our customers. The 3 to 4 bedrooms is really the sweet spot. You go to the 1 to 2, it's hard to make the margin we need to make these deals work because you're putting in the roof, you're putting in the walls, you're putting in the driveway, you're putting in all the other stuff you would normally put in. You're just spreading your cost over a smaller square foot that people pay less for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my main concern. The Hillsdale, and this doesn't involve you, but the Hillsdale Commons development, the NEZ.
And how many bedrooms are those? Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe they're 3 to 4.
I believe that's correct. It depends on which unit. So the 4 bedrooms are the 4.
There are some two bath
Yes,
variety
there
as
are.
well for the duplexes there at Hillsdale Commons, and so those are actually a step above in terms of price tier for a much different product. And again, those are duplexes and not 3 and 4 bedroom single family detached.
Right. Yeah, my main concern is we're doing Hillsdale Commons subsidized, the NEZs on Manning Street subsidized, these subsidized. And to me, I want roofs over people's heads, and this is going to exclude the bottom 80%, right, by definition. And if we're going to be giving sort of assistance to people, we need to assist the people who really need it, who could never afford to build a home on their own. I just think that these programs are continually targeted toward laptop workers, professionals, administrators at the college and at the hospital. And we have homeless people, right? So I want a roof over everyone's head, not an expanding population when we can't take care of the people who are already here.
Could I respond to that quickly?
Sure, yeah.
So there are 2 points that I think it's important to emphasize. One is, this isn't necessarily about expanding Hillsdale's population, growing the city to a more urban area. I've heard that. Really, well, this is about meeting the current existing demand in the market that we know is not being met. No, that's not what we're saying, but this is not, part of this plan to, transform Hillsdale. When you look at our total number of housing units and, 8,000 residents, you're talking about 61 homes. It's not a large percent per se, but what this will do is meaningfully make progress towards helping alleviate that housing shortage. And there is a benefit even to folks who necessarily, might not buy these homes. What you see happen often is when you add residential housing supply in a city that's facing a housing shortage, the way that this helps folks and it benefits the community as a whole, in the economics world, there's a term called filtering, and what that term means is it describes the process by which, let's say, here's just a hypothetical example. You have a family in the city of Hillsdale. Currently, they might have a small, 1 bedroom, or 1 or 2 bed, a bungalow, let's say, single story. Well, they have a growing family, and perhaps they're looking to upgrade their living situation. So, they move into one of these homes, and then that frees up their home to be listed on the market. And often, that home, because it's more of a starter home, gets listed at a price that is affordable to folks with more modest incomes. So you have that cascading effect that happens. And so if you look historically, throughout U.S. history, when you're building new homes, you're adding, to that housing supply, it's very rare that those homes can actually be brought to market at that, price point you're talking about that is maybe affordable for folks, kind of at the lower end of the income spectrum. But when you look at what actually causes homes to be affordable, you will find that in communities, as homes age, as they depreciate in value, as folks are able to, basically size up in terms of what they're buying, all of that contributes to a more healthy and stable market where there's more supply to go around. And really, it's a supply and demand issue at the end of the day. If we don't have the supply here to meet the current demand, it doesn't take any pressure off our housing market, and the cost of rents, the cost of buying a home continue to go up. By adding a little bit to the supply, we can try to help stabilize the market to a certain extent. And that in turn, like I said, it does free up other housing options for folks who, maybe aren't looking at buying something like this, but they would be in the market for a new starter home if that came available.
Yeah, I still don't, the council's role should be to, not to tinker with the market. We're just not a central planning operation. We keep hearing that there's a market for this, there's a crisis, but we can't meet it without using the tools of government action, which means that the market is not calling for new houses, right? I understand we don't have a free market, there's a lot of subsidization, but Michigan is bleeding residents to states with lower general tax rates. Our policy should be here, I've said this over and over, lower the general tax rate, make new building affordable for all families. Don't give special carve-outs to the wealthier residents. I also worry, it does seem like the policy of the council should actually be to keep the housing market tight so that the people who live here have valuable homes, rather than increasing the supply and therefore dropping the average price of homes. Just a few more brief comments, and then I'll let it go. I received an email that the density of Hillsdale about 50 years ago was 3 people per home. Now it's 2.5. And I was looking this up for the state. It looks like it was about 3.5 per home in the state. And these are factors outside of our control, right? Divorce, fewer children, people don't have extended family living in the home, all of these things. This indicates that we need smaller homes, right? And I get we want to help people, but we're subsidizing people with larger families at the higher end of the income bracket. To me, when I think of workforce housing, the immediate association is the working class. The working class, almost by definition, is people with 50% of median income or less, people who go to work and earn a wage rather than a salary. And that's the type of people, in theory, that we should be helping with workforce. So the density issue is a big issue. Also, our declining population in the last census indicates that we don't have this rush of new people coming to live here. And then I think the last question is, can we commit in the contract to using local contractors?
Starting with your last question first, we look for laborers and contractors wherever we go, so I'm sure we're going to be open to that. We're not going to commit to anything we can't 100% do, to the point earlier about trust. So I'm not going to say we're going to actually use local contractors when we can't. If we do, what happens a lot of times, we go into new cities, we pick up a new contractor, then they end up working for us across the state. So we're definitely going to be open to it. We're like every other home builder. We need contractors, we need laborers, we need trades people as quickly and as fast as possible. So the idea that we're not going to be open to new contractors is not correct. We need local tradespeople.
Not claiming that. I just keep stating that.
Okay. And then your other questions were the workforce housing is 50% of the median income. Just the definition I'm using today is the one from statute. It's 80 to 120.
Yeah.
And I got the numbers. You have the worst seat for the presentation.
No, and I understand the numbers, but when we think about the working class, I think of people who earn a wage. Yeah. Right, by definition, they're not white collar if they're working class. This is almost entirely gonna be structured for white collar work. I know you might dispute that, but
Okay.
if you make 40 or 50,000, these homes are not gonna be fit for you, right? At $1,800 a month, we're talking $20,000 a year in rent. That's 50% of your wage to rent.
So we don't wanna go to 50% of your wage, but the first family I met that lived in one of the workforce housing, units that I put up was in White Cloud, and it was the family I just talked about, where you got the mom's a preschool teacher and the dad's a mechanic, and they make $103,000 a year. I think you're seeing a lot of that with double income families. Amazon delivery people can make $50,000 a year, you get a couple, you're over $100,000.
That's a whole other issue, is the double income family. A lot of us
I can't solve that today.
A lot of residents want single income families. We'd like to get back to the dream of the 1970s and 80s where we can actually educate our own children. I think there's a lot of philosophical differences here. I don't think there is a market because you have to use a tax subsidy. You're saying that's part of the market. I think we should have a low general tax rate rather than targeted subsidies where we pick a winner and say that no one else can build. I think that we need smaller homes and we need to build within our means. As our state and our population get, are poorer than the average. But I appreciate all of your help answering these questions today. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. What happens if this fails? What if?
So to not be, if this fails tonight, we won't do the development. This is one of the tests they talk about is the but for, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't bought the land yet, is that we need this incentive to make the deal pencil. So without the incentive, the risk is too high. We've got other communities we can work in. And no hard feelings if that's.
But you guys are already out there.
We're out there on the first portion.
Yeah.
And those, we got great cooperation from the administration and the team that handles the building permits and the trades. So this is a very cooperative community. We like Hillsdale. We want to be here, which is why we're here right now.
Councilman Beard.
Yeah, this is probably because Josh was going toward urban density with adding 61 homes. We can't forget that, well, you're talking it would increase the population of Hillsdale. And you can't forget the fact that how many homes up around the college have been demolished. I'm gonna say in the last 20 years, conservatively, I would think at least 20, I don't know, Kimberly could probably back me up on that, that they've actually, they buy the homes, they tear them down, and until they have something else coming, they aren't replacing them. So we're actually, because of the growth of the college, not meaning it negative at all, but we have lost some houses. Could you, about how many, do you have that?
So Jason just said he was tailing up not too long ago and came up with 26 that he knew of.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
I would guess the number's actually a little higher than that. It just depends how far back you want to go.
Right, and so then so we're adding 61, but we're talking another 6 years. I'm thinking from your estimates, you probably won't start the first building until maybe 2 years from now.
Yeah, about late next year.
Late next year, okay. And then planning to do 10 a year.
10 a year after that.
And if 61, I got another 6 years. So you're only looking at adding maybe 30 more or so, in the net thing.
And just as I'm thinking about this, the hotel project is gonna eliminate another at least 4 that I know of.
Yep. So, and of course, from a city standpoint, we're getting nothing for this. And if this council decides to say, well, because of this reason and that reason, it doesn't fit historical things for the city and things like that, or we're gonna have that land sitting there for probably another 20 years because the city doesn't have the money to do that 1.7 and, into the roads. And I just think it's a really good opportunity going forward, and it's, if the council decides not to do it, well, we're gonna be looking at that metal for quite a bit longer, so.
Councilman Wolfram.
Just what concern I had was that talked to our city manager about this briefly, is that the first time that I saw this was at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And, you know, then I started getting all these emails and everything else. And I'm wondering, I mean, I don't want to say, I'm not asking the question, what happens if it fails? I know if it fails, you're not going to do it. But the question would be, what if we delayed it and give people time to focus through it? Like I said, you know, this was all I printed off. This is what I got, you know, Thursday evening. And now we're looking at it. So I'm just wondering, what if we delayed it for till the next council meeting or whatever? What would that do in terms of your decision about what, you know, whether to go forward or not?
Yeah, if it's a no vote, we're not doing the project. If it's not a no vote, we're still in the game.
We can delay it until another meeting. We have the public hearing, that is the requirement, to hold the public hearing. We could bring it back for a vote if somebody felt like they wanted to think about it more. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm saying that's not a game stopper. I think there's been a lot of interesting points made that have long-term implications, and I'm not opposed to that. So, Councilman Sharp.
This is my last time to vote, and I wanna vote. I wanna get it clearly out there to get the vote, and expose yourself, show which way you're going. If you don't want this, then you don't want growth, you want Hillsdale to stay stagnant. The concern about migrant workers, that's ridiculous. We can have.
Bruce, you work in Coldwater. Those are people that are brought up to work at Clemens. I don't work at Coldwater anymore. They build housing there. They've got those units there. They're not migrants. They're not eating their cats and dogs.
I didn't say that.
But that's where you pointed up one city in Ohio out. So let's just get it straight. Let's just vote tonight and get it over with. Let's see where we're gonna go with this. Because I've been on this council, I've been wanting this done since I've been on council. The development of the housing, the public safety, the growth that is getting these streets fixed. Let's vote on it. Let's put it out there tonight.
I understand your point that you're making, Bruce, but I also am am wary of when you're on your last meeting wanting to jam things through when people are thinking about things. It's not doing a service to your constituents.
Just a second.
You've been out there shopping for houses. You know what the housing market's about. You know what it's like. I know what's going on. I really believe we should be given the right to vote tonight. And if you don't do that, then I'll resign right now. I make a motion we vote on this development.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. Councilman Paladino.
I was just gonna, are there any homes that can be built on the existing infrastructure?
We've done it.
All available property?
Yeah, when we first looked at in this development, we looked at the first portion and we built the duplexes on that.
Okay, yeah, I was just gonna say, if there was somewhere you could continue to build, maybe we could take a vote on that. I just disagree that we aren't taking a risk. We're adding new infrastructure. This is a long-term cost to the city. We can't maintain the infrastructure we have. But, okay, I'll be done.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Real quickly, I just wanted to point out one thing. When Brian had came to the community, one of his first things that he did kind of seek out was infill lots. I know that was mentioned earlier, but it was never really addressed. They actually, and Brian himself had sought out infill lots to build additional housing on. So that is something that could happen in addition to this within the community as lots come up.
Yes, so in addition to this, I'll add to that, great point. We've just bought 36 lots in Muskegon, all former demolition sites, infill lots attached to infrastructure. We've got a purchase agreement on 136 lots in Jackson. I've got 22 lots under contract in Niles, Michigan. So the infill lots is very exciting to us. We don't see it as in, this or that. And we do have styles of infrastructure or architecture that do fit a new urbanist style with a front porch and a rear loaded garage, and they can be built on alleys. We do have that. I see this vote as the beginning of a relationship of how we can build together. I don't see it as one or the other.
Well, you've done a hell of a job presenting tonight
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
for 2 hours.
My voice held up.
Yep. Got a motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor? Can I have a roll call, please, City Clerk?
Councilwoman Pratt? Yes. Councilperson Sharp?
Yes.
Soha? Veer? Yes. Wolfram?
Yes, but I
Mayor
just wanna say,
Stockford?
we are not voting to delay it, we're voting whether.
We're voting on the whole thing, and my vote's no.
Alright.
Gary's was yes.
Okay.
And it passes, because Josh is the last one, doesn't matter what he says.
Morrissey?
Yes.
My bad.
And, yeah, Palladino.
Good job, Brian.
Yep, passes resolution 3618, guys.
Thank you, Katie. And good job being patient, council. That was really good. It was a great discussion. It was. Of course we can. Okay, let's see if we can get through the rest of the meeting quickly, since it's really just very randomly benign stuff here. We'll move on to new business. Item A, set oath of office meeting for newly elected council members. That would be, we usually do it the Monday after. Are you guys listening to me? We usually do it the Monday after, but because they're gonna have to certify, it's gonna have to be 2 weeks from them, which would be the next regularly scheduled council meeting, so we need to set the date for Tuesday, November 12th at 8 p.m. It's okay.
So November 12th is basically what you're gonna motion.
Yeah, so yes,
Instead
do
of
I
the
have a
11th
motion to
because it's
set
that
the?
day.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, I believe had the first one. The support came from Councilman Morrissey. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we'll move to new business item B. Cemetery rules and regulations update.
Thank you, Mayor.
Jason,
Thank you,
make
Mayor.
it quick, buddy.
I appreciate it, sir. This item's been going over a couple of years. It predates me to Jake. The current rules and regulations just state for size and location of grave marker, whether it be raised or flush, shall be determined by the cemetery board. That's I'd like to clear that up with a lot of the phone calls we get. We don't know what to tell them because there's nothing actually in writing. So the cemetery board, we went back to them, asked for a 48-inch height restriction. Anything over 48-inch can then go back to the board, but that'll help us vet at least 80-90% of the requests in the cemetery.
Awesome.
Being said, I would ask for this to the council to approve this to the new language to set a 48-inch height restriction grave markers. Any grave markers over 48 inches, 4 foot, will need to come to the cemetery board for approval. Just kind of helps streamline the process.
You guys all cool with that? I'm sure the cemetery board will be open if somebody has some sort of reason that
Absolutely,
they need
we
to
have
go
helped
outside.
3 of them in the last couple of months. It
Awesome.
always kind of depends where they're at in the cemetery and what's underneath ground and so forth.
Very good, very good. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Don't go anywhere, Jason. Dial a ride. Fleet bus price increase. Item letter C.
Awesome, thank you again, sir. December 18th of last year, the council approved one bus purchase in the price of $176,724. During this last year, Mighty Eagle has been renewing their contract with our vendor, Hoekstra Transportation. The new bus came in $18,737 over the approved amount. The $18,737 still reimbursed 100% by state using federal and state funds. This is a formality that I do need because we will pay for the bus first and get reimbursed after payment. With that being said, I do ask the council to to approve the $18,737 price increase for one F-550 bus for the total of $195,461 instead of the previous price of $176,724. Again, that is 100% reimbursed.
Sounds great. Any questions for Jason?
I just have one, we were still looking into advertising, were we on the bus, is that still in progress?
Yes, it is.
Any more questions? Do I have a motion to approve? Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp to approve the $18,737 purchase. Price increase of one Ford F-550 fleet bus. May I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilperson Sharp? Yes. Soha? Beer? Yes. Wolfram? Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey? Yes. Palladino? Yes. And Pratt? Yes. 8-0 approved.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate it as well. We got no proclamations. We've got one appointment tonight. Kirsten Newland from the EDC. It's not a candidate that I sought out myself, but she came with a unanimous recommendation from the Economic Development Corporation, and I did reach out to Kirsten earlier to just touch base with her. She seems like a very good and nice person, and she works for the hospital, so she's coming on board to EDC as the hospital's representative. Any questions? Councilman Palladino.
I just want to say, I haven't made this point in months, so I don't like the committees making recommendations, so I don't know anything about this woman. I am going to oppose it because it wasn't your appointment, though. I don't want the committees refilling their own ranks.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about that either, but the whole committee of people, all of them were in favor of her, so it is what it is. I understand completely. What's that? Yeah, just do a roll call, since Josh has said he is gonna oppose.
Councilperson Soha? Beer? Yes. Wolfram? Yes. Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey? Yes. Palladino? No. Pratt? Yes. Sharp? Yes. 7-1 approved.
All right, great job, Katie. We'll move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to one to the podium, and you may speak on whatever your heart so desires. The podium is now open.
Hello, I am Jeff Azikas, and I have a beautiful comment. I was here earlier this spring about a nice $250,000 toy we have, and guess what? It's that time of year. The toy should be out, but it's not. We're using the loader again, so now we're at 3 out of 5 years that we've owned this, that we've used the loader. So we've spent $750,000 because it was more efficient, most likely, and a council thinks it's important to worry about, and yet we're not using it, and it's just sitting there being wasted. More of our taxpayer dollars down the drain. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any more public comment?
Really quick, I don't think an empty field is a blight. It's actually kind of nice to look at, and we shouldn't commit to chip sealing this roads until all the roads in town are fixed up. And however many years it is, 10 years, you're going to be paying for that, while all roads are probably just the same shape they are in now. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any more public comment? General public comment? You can say anything you want. Jack?
I just had a question. Are you going to close the public hearing or not?
Oh, you got me, Jack. You got me tonight.
I didn't know if you had to before you did the vote. I just didn't know if you could vote with the public comment or with the hearing still going on. I didn't know.
Yeah, you don't vote till after. You don't close the public hearing, I don't think, till after you vote, but I did forget to. Okay.
I think that was a good job passing that. There's a lot of, I mean, that thing's been there, the economic development's owned it for 18 years. It's running, don't worry about it, I'm watching. I'm not gonna be here that long anyhow. It's just wasting my time here. Economic development's had it for 18 years now and haven't done anything with it. I mean, and it's not like you're giving them anything, they're actually giving the city. So if it goes another 18 years and you don't get any money out of it, but you get new roads at the end of that time, it's like the high rise. That company built that, gave it to the city. They have for 30 years. What's the big deal?
Hi, Timothy Green again, Ward 3. Thanks for your conversation, for listening to the arguments, I appreciate it. I think there's a lot of giving away of responsibility and even like giving away of your own thought life to the experts and to the state. There's a lot of like hidden assumptions that I think, Gary, I'm sorry, but I think you tend to give away your willingness to think to like the statistics and the experts. There's a lot of caving to experts, and I think you guys should be cautious, very cautious about assuming that other people's numbers are correct. So I just wanted to say that to encourage you to be wary. I don't think you were wary tonight. For all of you who voted yes, thank you to everybody who voted no. It's hard to make a decision like that. I know that this was a big deal, so thank you to all of you who voted no. It means a lot, but good night.
Thank you, sir. Any more public comment?
Yeah, I'll echo that comment. You guys got sold something tonight by people who have profit on the line. They're not impartial experts either. They're not even pretending to be impartial experts. And you only listen to the testimony of people who flashed you a bunch of numbers on the screen, graphs you called out correctly that were BS. And you trusted that with the aid of a city employee, which is sort of shocking to me that, by the way, that they get to make a comment after the public gets to make a comment. You know, I resent the fact that we come here to watch the arguments and to make our voices heard, and you let the peasants talk, and then you get the city employee comes up here and gets to call people out afterwards as if the comment's over. That seemed wildly inappropriate. But it's really impressive to me how much deference and how much apology there is. Y'all's job is to protect this community and the city. You should make no apologies for asking hard questions. None. You should make no apologies for making sure you're grilling them carefully. That's the job of the council. And a corporation came in here and gave a bunch of numbers, and the citizens overwhelmingly in this meeting voted against it. And you guys trusted that like they were somehow impartial, which was really pathetic and shameful. But yeah, I echo that comment about, thanks to the conversation about it. I echo Adam's comment to Councilman Sharp about demanding a vote when it's maybe not the right time for the community because you want it. Well, you know, maybe it would have been better to sit and think about it a little bit and actually dive into the numbers that you got on Thursday and actually be hesitant about that and be showing some discipline in that regard. Because a corporation stood here and put a gun to your head and said, if you don't do it tonight, we're going to walk away. And you all got scared about wasting an empty field at the risk of destruction of the town, as some of you pointed out correctly. That's a real risk. It's a real risk in real communities. You think those corporations that sat there and said, oh no, we plan on bringing a bunch of immigrants in. No. They said the same things to those councils that these people said to you tonight, and you bought it. So I hope it doesn't come to the worst case scenario that a lot of Americans are seeing across the country right now, because that will be on your head. All of you who are on this council right now and voted yes.
Thank you, sir.
You were not here at the last meeting, were you, sir? No. That was a different attorney.
It's my part.
Very good. Thank you. So the city manager brought up that he takes criticism for not living in the city. That's warranted because the city ordinance requires him to live in the city.
No, it doesn't.
The gentleman who sat here last week said that the McCarthy case says that he doesn't have to live in the city. Its residency requirements are unconstitutional. McCarthy versus Philadelphia Civil Service Commission, though, says after 16 years of service, appellant's employment in the Philadelphia Fire Department was terminated because he moved his permanent residence from Philadelphia to New Jersey in contravention of municipal regulation requiring employees of the city of Philadelphia to be residents of the city. He challenges the constitutionality of the regulation and the authorizing ordinances as violative of his federally protected right of interstate travel. The regulation was sustained by the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania and review was denied by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. His timely appeal is here pursuant. The Supreme Court goes on to cite a Michigan Supreme Court case which held that residency requirements are not unconstitutional. And indeed, the Supreme Court of the United States says that this case involves the kind of bona fide continuing residence requirement. The judgment of the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania is therefore affirmed, which means, according to the United States Supreme Court, residency requirements are constitutional. And so it's fair for the citizens to question, when that's the rationale we've been given, why Mr. Mackey is allowed to continue his employment in violation of city ordinances. It's a fair question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
If you'd like, Mr. Thompson can give you an opinion on that issue. Bill Stanley, I wasn't here at the meeting, but, it's been 25 years in Michigan that those residency requirements could not be enforced against a city manager.
Okay.
And for 30 years, you had a city attorney who didn't live in the city. You have one now who does. But, and then perhaps, there was a misside of the case, but it's pretty well established that those requirements, aren't enforceable. They're enforceable for elected city officials, but not for appointed or hired city administrators.
Okay, well, maybe at the next council meeting, you guys can decide if you want to have Tom seek a legal opinion. Well, it's gonna cost us money to have him do it, correct? So, should be a vote. Okay, well, if it's without charge, then. Any more public comment?
Just wanna follow up on that. You had a man come here who sells 800 homes a year. If you think that they won't jump at the first federal government subsidy to put whoever they want in this town, then you are sorely mistaken. And I hope it doesn't come to that. But again, everybody who voted yes, you should be prepared for that.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Okay, we'll close the podium. Dave, city manager report?
I'm going to pass, Mayor, because we're coming up on 10 o'clock.
We are coming up on 10 o'clock. Can I have a motion to extend the meeting? Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt to extend the meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, just in case we go past 10. We'll move into council comment. He said he was gonna not do a city manager's report tonight. Sure.
I would have appreciated more time. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Robert. Bruce?
I've been on this council since 2007, then I got off at 2011, and I got back on after Scott Sessions was elected mayor, and I've been on it since. I want to thank the people that trusted me for being their council representative. I've been the type of council person, if you call me, I'm gonna come to your house and we're gonna have a face-to-face conversation. I've also talked to all the city staff and department heads. I'm more than familiar. When I hear something, I do my research. I talk to people, I get the facts. I always believe in getting the facts before I stick my foot in my mouth and say something wrong. My wife, I want to thank her because she's been my steady guide through all this. She always reminds me, think about what you're going to say before you say it, because once you say it, you can't take it back. And most generally, I've followed that. I'm going to miss you guys. I'm going to miss the people I've been around. We've had some good discussions, especially tonight. That I am a veteran too. I just want to make sure that gentleman knows that. I serve my country. I'm concerned with the growth of the city of Hillsdale. I don't want to see it stay stagnant. I'd like to see it grow a little bit, but not too much. We've got a lot in this community to offer, but we've got to work together as a council as to. My time is up, and you will not see me anymore doing politics. I might come up here once in a while just to scream at you guys, but that's not any different than anybody else. but I do thank you for the time, and I look forward to the retirement.
Thank you for your service, Bruce. It's been a long time up here with you. Cindy?
My last one too. I know I haven't said much, but I sure have learned a lot. I'm not a politician.
You've done a great job, Cindy, without a doubt.
I just wanna, apparently I said something last council meeting that some people took offense at, and it was directed towards Councilwoman Pratt. And if that's so, I'm gonna revisit the video, but I apologize, it was an unintended slight. So I appreciate, well, I'd have to see the context of it, but I apologize, I've appreciated your service the whole time, and thank you.
Councilman Beer?
This could be my last one because I'm in a contested race, but I just want to thank this council, city staff. I've enjoyed working with y'all. If my constituents want me to serve another 4 years, I'll gladly do it. And I just want to say that the future councils, I hope they can keep things moving in a good direction. And I thank everybody for all their past support.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for your service. You've been an absolute pleasure to serve with as well. Anybody else? Councilman Palladino?
Did the brownfield go through economic, or, community development or just economic development?
Pretty sure just EDC.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, but again, this not being reviewed by committee is extremely disturbing to me. We have 3-4 days to look at the numbers when we have full-time jobs. Just not enough time for a project of this scale. I had 40 questions written down and I got through about 20 of them. And I took more time than anyone here wants to spend. So we gotta get things going through committees. I don't even know if that's possible because of the EDC regulations in this case.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody else? No, hold on, I have a statement that I would like to make. I'm sure a lot of you guys know, my wife and I purchased a house outside of the city limits of Hillsdale. It wasn't something that we were trying to hide from people. We actually just closed on it less than a week ago, but since we were doxxed online, I was planning on making the statement anyways at this council meeting, so it's not something that I was forced into doing. Yeah, we bought it to move into, to be our primary residence. We're very excited about it. My wife and my children are absolutely in love with the place. But once we make the move out there, I will no longer be a city resident, so I will no longer be eligible to hold office in the city of Hillsdale. So I will tender my resignation. I'm not sure exactly when we're gonna move out there, but I will tender my resignation active January 1st, 2025. I think we will still be living in the city at that time, but just to give council the opportunity to be able to move on and plan for the future without having the mayor's seat on some sort of swivel head trying to figure out what's going on. I think that's probably the best move to make. It's been my absolute pleasure to serve as the mayor of the city of Hillsdale, and we love it very much, but this is a happy move for us. So, and it's not very often in a man's life that he gets to make a decision that makes his family happy. So, I jumped at it. It's a lovely place, but I appreciate you all, and like I said, it's been a distinct honor, and don't forget to go vote tomorrow. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting's adjourned.